And we are live, so we're reconvening our council meeting for Tuesday, August the 11th. And for those of you that are joining us now, we did earlier when we opened up to go into closed session, asked for a disclosure of pecuniary interest, and there wasn't any from council. So moving on, we do have to have a public meeting under the Planning Act, and so I will need a motion to adjourn our regular meeting, and then we will convene as a committee of adjustment under the Planning Act. So can I get a mover and seconder for that, please? Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan. And all opposed? And that is carried. Okay, so the first one we've got in front of us is a minor variance application. And the applicant is 2219260 Ontario Incorporated, Vito Campanelli, and Dillon Consulting is acting as their agent, and it has to do with a variance on Miller Drive. And we are joined by our planner, Dan Fitzgerald. Great to have you with us, Dan. And I'll hand it over to you at this point to help us go through your report.
Through the chair, thank you, Mayor and members of the committee. I'm just going to add this on. Let me know that you can see that. Okay. So the application before the committee tonight is with respect to a property located in the Ridge Crossing subdivision, which is requesting a minor variance to reduce the rear yard setback for the proposed townhouse units abutting the north property line, and also to permit an encroachment for a rear deck and allow the decks to be constructed on a common property line between vacant land condo units within the development. The subject property is a 2.88 acre residential parcel with a frontage of approximately 115.75 meters on Miller Drive and is located in Lucan as part of the Ridge Crossing subdivision. The lands are generally surrounded by residentially zoned lands on all sides and back onto Saintsbury line. Lands are designated settlement area in the county official plan, residential in the local official plan, and zoned a site-specific residential third density R3-6 zone in the township zoning bylaw. And for everyone's reference, I'm going to flip to the plan. The subject lands have received site plan approval as well as condominium exemption from the county. As shown on the plan, the applicant is requesting relief from the minimum rear yard setback for units 1 to 14, which abut the north property line to 5.35 meters, whereas 5.63 meters is currently permitted. They're also seeking a permitted rear yard deck encroachment of 3.05 meters, yielding a minimum setback of 2.3 meters from the rear lot line, whereas they are currently permitted to encroach 3.5 meters to a maximum of 2.58 meters to the rear property line. Lastly, they are seeking permission to be able to establish a minimum 0 meter interior side yard setback for decks occupying a common wall interior property line for a vacant land condo unit. One comment was received from the public, which was not in support of the proposed application in advance of the meeting. Staff have reviewed the proposal against the Planning Act tests, local official plan, and local zoning bylaw. The proposed format of development is in keeping with the residential character of the area. Staff also believe that the proposal is minor in nature and would not pose a negative impact to the neighboring properties, given that the rear yard is and will maintain a minimum 1.8 meter board-on-board fence for screening and privacy purposes. Additionally, staff note that the proposal meets the intent of the zoning bylaw by maintaining access and providing an amenity space for residents, while also buffering the neighboring developments. Lastly, staff are satisfied that the proposal meets the intent of the official plan given the residential designation of the lands. Given the above, planning staff is satisfied that the requested reduction to the rear yard setback, minimal increase to a deck encroachment, and reduction of an interior side yard setback to 0 for decks on a common property line with the neighboring condo unit, satisfies the aforementioned Planning Act test, and recommends that the subject application be approved as noted in the planning report. Thank you, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Dan. Questions from the committee? Dave, Deputy Mayor Manders.
How is the grading plan looked at on this sort of tightness to the fence? Like, is that taken into consideration? I mean, I actually don't have a problem with it, but I have a problem with. It's amazing, again, as we get denser and taking up more land, the swales and the flow of water. I'm not sure if all the units have sump pumps or certain units, but in enforcing, again, our staff and future staff, when we're all not here, is nobody will be able to have a tree back there. No one will be able to have a shed back there. I'm assuming it'd be that tight, it sounds like to me. So how do you guys look at that?
Through the chair. Generally speaking, the grading in general would be reviewed through the site plan approval process. So there would be an approved grading plan that's registered against the title of the lands that they would have to maintain regardless of an encroachment of a deck. So in this particular situation, staff felt that the additional encroachment of a foot for a rear yard deck would not negatively impact the grading plan as approved in the site plan documents.
So there's a certain amount of footage that it would, but you're just saying a foot doesn't. Eventually it would, but just not a foot.
Through the chair, that's correct, yes.
And then I noticed, and then there's going to be a fence that's set on the other side where there's a chain link. How is that? How do we control when that's erected?
Through the chair. So that's a good point. The recommendation in the planning report before you actually has a condition attached to it that states that the chain link fence shall be replaced with a 1.8 meter board-on-board fence, provide that privacy screening on both sides of the property. So effectively speaking, the minor variance isn't technically approved until such time as that fence is removed and replaced, if approved.
Gotcha. And the last thing, I don't know if they're less. I was going to bring this up with Jeff, and the mayor can decide whether it can be discussed right now. I drove to the site yesterday just to have a look at the lay of the land as we're going to talk about it today, and there was a lot of outstanding water, there. And I know it rained heavily on the weekend, but my concern was, again, that water sitting there for that length of time, even after 2 days, there's obviously no drainage there. My concern is obviously as that is very dense and people start to move there and children start to move into that area, that's going to be a mosquito heaven. And also potentially, I mean, if someone took the time to drive there, they'd see even potentially a child drowning there from what I witnessed yesterday. And that's, again, that's after 2 days of no rain. But again, it's got nothing to do with that. But
I think
I can bring that up to Jeff.
If we discuss that either during Jeff's report when we resume sitting as council,
sure,
or in your councilor comments, I think that would be the time to do that.
All right, that's all I got. Thanks.
Okay. Any other comments or questions regarding the application in front of us? Councillor Mastarakis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, the individual that was against, did they provide comment why they were against the project?
Through the chair, yes, they did. So they were opposed to the proposed variance for a reduction on the rear yard because they felt that the reduction would further impose on their privacy.
You're okay with that? Any follow-up, Peter?
No, I believe you answered that question earlier about the fence and the height and the privacy. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions regarding? I just had one, Dan. There have been a number of adjustments made to the original plan regarding this particular development. And just wondering if there is any background on that, or should this really be the last of requests for variances?
Through the chair, I would sure hope so, that they're not going to come back and do something again. With respect to this specific variance, I did speak to Dillon Consulting and confirmed that the necessity of the variance was actually based on a measurement error on their side. So the units in this case are not getting bigger to any degree. It's just that when they originally surveyed the lands, they did not take into account certain distances, which is necessitating this variance again.
Okay, right. Thank you for that. Any other questions, comments? Okay, so there is a recommendation from our planner. We would just need a motion to either accept the recommendation or not. And I would at this time entertain a motion either way. Councillor Reagan?
Motion to accept.
Okay, and a seconder for that? Deputy Mayor Dave Manders? Any further comment, question? All opposed? And that's carried. Now there is a decision that needs to be signed. There's just a little bit of a typo in the copy that I've got. So Tina is going to let us know tomorrow when the clean copy is available, and you're just going to have to come into the office to sign that. So she'll remind us of that tomorrow. Okay, moving on. We now have a consent application in front of us, B-10-2020. And it is with Ryan Wayne Carroll and Lynn Marie Cowder Carroll. And again, I will turn this back over to Dan.
Through the chair, thank you, Mayor and members of the committee. And again, I'm just going to share my screen so everyone can see the location of the proposal. So with respect to the application, before the committee tonight is a proposed severance for the purpose of disposing a surplus farm dwelling as a result of farm consolidation. The subject property is a 19.55 hectare farm parcel that's located on the south side of Wayland Line, on the southeast corner of the intersection of Wayland Line and St. Spurry Line, and is municipally addressed 6441 Wayland Line. The lands are designated agricultural and natural areas according to the township official plan and zoned general agricultural A1 zone in the township zoning bylaw. The applicant is requesting to sever approximately 0.82 hectares or 2.02 acres of land occupied by a single detached dwelling and accessory building. The balance of the remaining agricultural lands would have an area of approximately 18.74 hectares or 46 acres approximately for the purpose of agricultural production. The existing house is privately serviced through a well and septic system, was constructed in 1994 and maintains access from Wayland Line. Additionally, as will be heard subsequently under a separate application, ZBA 7-2020, the owner has requested the balance of the farm be rezoned to an agricultural exception zone to prohibit any new residential use on the remnant lands and to recognize the undersized nature of the lot area. Well, while the severed portion would be rezoned to a surplus dwelling zone to reflect the residential nature. The provincial policy statement, county official plan, and township official plan generally permit severances of dwellings considered surplus to farming operations as a result of farm consolidation. General criteria for review are as follows. The residence was constructed prior to 1999. New residential dwellings are prohibited on the remnant farm parcel. Provisions for appropriate sewage and water services are in place. The severed parcel be limited in size and only be as large as necessary to accommodate servicing. In terms of the proposal, the house was built in prior to 1999. The dwelling is considered habitable and the severed parcel would maintain private services. And staff are satisfied that the house is considered surplus to a farm operation as a result of farm consolidation. The proposal also seeks to maintain the existing accessory building with the severed portion of the lands. Appropriate conditions of consent have been recommended to ensure the chief building official is satisfied that the structures are adequate to be maintained as a residential use. Additionally, the accessory building would meet zoning requirements for setbacks and size. Planning staff are satisfied that the criteria for the proposed severance of a surplus farm residence on the lands have been met or can be appropriately addressed via conditions of consent. Staff received comments from various agencies during the circulation, all of which were in support. Conditions have been included as recommended. Based on the above, planning staff recommend the application for consent B-10/2020 filed on behalf of Ryan Wayne Carroll and Lynn Marie Cowdery DeVoe or Carroll to sever a parcel of land for the purpose of disposing of surplus farm dwelling having a lot frontage of approximately 59.08 meters along Wayland Line in an area of approximately 0.82 hectares from a property legally described as part of Lot 7 concession north boundary in the township of Lucan Biddulph, County of Middlesex, and municipally known as 6441 Wayland Line be granted, subject to the conditions outlined in the planning report. The reasons for that is consistency with the provincial policy statement, conformity with the County of Middlesex official plan and Township of Lucan Biddulph official plan, and the requirements of the Township Lucan Biddulph zoning bylaw are capable of being satisfied through the amendments thereto. Thank you, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks for that, Dan. Any questions or comments on this application? Councillor Reagan.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Dan, when you mentioned that it talks about rezone to agricultural exception to prohibit any new residential use, that doesn't mean, like, I'm just asking, was that subdivisions or just another house or?
Through the chair. So the severed portion of the lands through our surplus farmhouse dwelling consent policies is required to be rezoned to a surplus dwelling zone, which in all respect is basically a residential zone in an agricultural area. The remnant farm parcel is then rezoned to a agricultural A3 zone, which removes the ability for an individual to build a residence on the lands, because basically the province wants to ensure that we're not adding additional residential lands and taking away from the farmland. So that's where that exception zone comes from. As well, in this case, the agricultural lands is undersized based on our size requirements for agricultural parcels of land. And that's why it's required to have that special exception zone to recognize the undersized nature of it.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Thank
Any
you.
other comments, questions on this application? Dan, the shed that's on the property, it will stay, it's going to be staying. We're not asking them to remove it at all. Do services run out there? I seem to remember in some other surplus farm dwelling applications that we've had where we have, the recommendation has been that services be cut to that building so that it doesn't, I guess, act as a farm accessory building, I think. Just wondered what the thoughts were on that for this one.
Through the chair to Mary. Yeah, that is correct. The way that we've kind of seen it happen before is that the individuals who own the farmlands want to maintain agricultural structures on the remnant farmlands and not on the severed lands. So when it's the case that they want to maintain a building or an agricultural structure on the remnant farmlands, there's a potential conflict with MDS standards for separations for nutrient units, basically on the lands. So with that said, in this case, that technically doesn't apply because they want to maintain the accessory building with surplus farm dwelling lands, which means it then just becomes a residential use and livestock is not permitted in that zone. So in this case, there wouldn't be a conflict with whether or not there is servicing in it, more or less, because they can't house animals in it anyways.
Okay, thanks for that. Any other comments from the committee? I know that the applicant is joining us He's muted right now, but I didn't know, Ryan, if you had anything that you wanted to add or put anything forward.
No, as long as there are no concerns, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Great.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. If there are no concerns from any of the council members, I have no comment.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ryan. Okay, so if there's no more discussion on this application, then I would need a motion to either accept or not accept the planner's recommendation at this time. If I can get a mover and seconder one way or the other for it. And I'm frozen. Am I frozen? Am I frozen?
No, I think you've got you've got Alex moving the motion.
To accept.
Okay, I can't
And
see. I can't
Daniel,
see it.
and Daniel seconding.
Alex is going to move accept.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I can't. Okay. My internet's unstable at this moment. So,
Good now.
might try to join a different way. I don't have a connection, so I'm gonna have to jump off and jump back on. So if Dave can call the question.
Dave, if you could maybe grab the gavel, so to speak, and call
Hello?
the vote. Oh,
She's gonna jump off and come back on. So
okay. Okay.
we can wait a minute, then I can proceed. There's one more, I believe. Dan's got one more to review here, right, Ron?
Correct. Yes, one
Dan
more.
wants
application.
to proceed. I don't know if we need to do anything official or do we want to wait
Or you can even call the vote
Yeah.
if you want, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
to finish this off?
Yeah, just to finish
Yeah,
this off. It was
yeah,
moved by
yeah,
Councillor Westman, seconded by Councillor Reagan. So,
Yeah, anybody opposed? Seeing nobody, passed.
okay, thank you.
And Dan might as well proceed with the next.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Dan.
Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Yeah, we're good.
So through the chair to the committee, the third application we have here today is an application for a subject property that is located at 142 Main Street. The subject property is a 1,673 square meter parcel of land that is situated on the north side of Main Street in Lucan. More specifically, the lands are located at the southeast corner of Main Street and Francis Street. They contain a former institutional use and are currently being used as a residential dwelling unit with an associated parking area to the rear. The subject land is used as a second driveway access to the rear parking area, as discussed tonight. The lands are designated settlement area in the county official plan. They are designated mixed use residential in the local official plan and zoned mixed use residential zone in the township zoning bylaw. The applicant is requesting to sever 3 meters wide by 30 meters in depth at an area of approximately 90 meters squared from 142 Main Street, which is to be consolidated with 131 Francis Street or the abutting property for the purpose of adding a larger driveway area. The lands in which the severed lands would be consolidated contain a residential dwelling unit, and the owner is seeking to add an additional dwelling unit within the existing structure. Surrounding land uses include a mix of commercial and residential zoned lands to the north and south, and residential lands to the east and west. Notice of the public meeting was circulated in advance of tonight's meeting in accordance with Planning Act requirements. We have received no comments or concerns. Provincial policy statement, county official plan, and municipal official plan all generally permit consents for lot addition purposes. The property is within the Lucan settlement area where lot additions are permitted. Also, zoning bylaw provisions would be adhered to in the case of a conveyance. The proposed severance is for a lot addition, therefore, planning staff do not anticipate any negative impacts on surrounding land uses, given that the property will continue to be used for residential purposes. Given the above, planning staff recommend that application for consent B-11/2020 filed by Mike Radcliffe on behalf of Scott Dart to sever a parcel of land for lot addition purposes having an area of approximately 90 meters squared and legally described as part of Lot 206, Plan 188 in the Township of Lucan-Biddulph, County of Middlesex, be granted, subject to the conditions outlined in the planning report. Thanks, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Does council have any questions on that? Oh. Seeing none. Ron, you're on mute. There we
Yep,
go.
sorry, Councillor Reagan has a question.
Oh, sorry.
Right, no, thanks. Dan, I'm just wondering, you said there was an addition of, maybe I missed addition of a residential unit there, or did I miss that or misunderstand that? Because I read through it and I guess I must have missed that.
Through the chair. So with respect to that aspect of the application, the reason why they're seeking this portion of land to be consolidated with 131 Francis Street is that they intend to build an additional residential dwelling unit in that property. So that would necessitate them to have additional land for parking purposes to accommodate that additional unit. That will be heard under a separate zoning bylaw application tonight.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Madam Mayor's back, it looks like.
I am back. It's weird because everybody else is still choppy on my end, but if everybody can hear me, go ahead, I guess.
Yeah, we can hear you fine on our end, I believe, anyways. Can you hear us, Kat?
Okay.
Madam Mayor?
It's not great. I think I'm going to have to leave and try again because my connection is not good. It's really choppy here. So Dave, if you don't mind, just calling this and maybe calling the vote on this, and
Yes.
I'll see what I can come up with here.
Okay. Yep. Any other questions from council? And I believe Jacob or Mike's on the phone. I assume they don't have any comments if there's no comments from them. So.
Oh, Mr. Radcliffe,
Good,
says
unless you have
Mike
questions.
Radcliffe. Mike, did you have a comment?
No comment unless you have any questions.
Okay.
No, I will call for a vote.
So you need a mover and seconder for the motion to either accept or not accept the recommendation.
I get someone to accept the recommendation.
I'll make a motion to accept. Councillor Regan.
Seconder? Peter? Anyone opposed? None. Passed.
Thank you.
Thanks. Is that is there one more, Dan, to do, I believe, correct? Or no?
Sorry.
Sure, yeah, so there's two more items, but you'll need to make a motion to go into the regular council meeting.
Okay, we're gonna make a
Sorry, the planning meeting.
go into the planning meeting.
Tina, did you maybe want to go through the motions just to, and sorry,
Sure.
sorry, Mr. Deputy Mayor, just to make sure we go in the right order?
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I can do that. So there is a motion required to adjourn the public meeting under the committee and reconvene public meeting under the Planning Act. So we'll just need a mover and a seconder for that.
Peter, seconded by Alex. No one opposed. Okay. I can't see Dan. The next
so-
thing,
Yeah, so at this point, Mr. Fitzgerald will review rather quickly, probably, because we've already kind of discussed both of these, but Mr. Fitzgerald, if you want to go through just a quick summary of what needs to be done at this stage of the meeting.
Sorry, did you guys make a motion to go into the public meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Sorry.
So at this
Can I-
stage, just to be clear, Dan, if you, Mr. Fitzgerald, the planner, if you want to just review what needs to be done during the in-camera or in the public meeting portion of this for the zoning.
Through the chair, yeah. So we have two, as you can see in the council agenda, we have two zoning bylaw amendment applications here tonight for the public meeting, both connected to applications we heard with respect to the committee. One a consent, or two consent files actually. Did you want to go through the preamble prior to the public meeting?
Just keep it short. Yep.
To the chair, Madam Mayor, did you want to go through that?
Oh, sorry. Okay, so this is for the zoning amendment for the Carroll property. I mean, I think that you pretty much, you gave that in your preamble during the Committee of Adjustments meeting. So I would think that unless the council had any questions on that, that we should be able to move through it quickly. I would think. Does council have any questions on the zoning? I mean, this is something that we've had time and again with surplus farm dwellings, this sort of thing. So if there's not any questions of Dan, the applicant I see is off. We don't have any concerns expressed to the public yet. Dan?
Yeah, through the chair to the mayor and council. Maybe I'll just go through the recommendations so that everyone has that in a breadth of mind when they're voting. So just so everyone kind of remember, this is with respect to 6441 Wayland Line, which was an application for a surplus farmhouse dwelling consent. With respect to this particular property, a zoning bylaw amendment was required, as discussed, for the remnant agricultural lands to an agricultural exception A3 exception zone, which would prohibit a new residential use on the balance of the farm, consistent with the PPS and county official plan and local official plan, and also to recognize the undersized nature of the lot. As well, the rezoning application also proposes a surplus farmhouse dwelling zone to recognize the residential use of the lands. Rezoning is considered appropriate, and that the lot resulting from the consent application heard earlier tonight is capable of conforming to all other aspects and requirements. And just as a note, a deposited reference plan will be required to accurately describe the limits of the lands being rezoned. So with that said, based on the above, planning staff do recommend that application for zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 7/2020 for the lands owned by Ryan Wayne Carroll and Lynn Marie Cowdery Carroll, and legally described as part of Lot 7 concession north boundary in the township of Lucan-Medolph, county of Middlesex, being located on the south side of Wayland Line and municipally known as 6441 Wayland Line, be approved, and that the implementing bylaw be forwarded to Township Council for consideration once a deposited reference plan has been provided to the satisfaction of the town.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Again, any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, the motion would be just to accept the recommendation. So if I can get a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Masterakis and Councillor Westman. All opposed? And that's carried. Okay, And then the next one is the zoning amendment application for the 131 Francis Street. Dan, if you just want to give a little bit of background, I think Councillor Regan did kind of highlight that, and this is what we're going to talk about now. So if you want to speak to that, Dan, that would be great.
Sorry, I muted myself and I couldn't get unmuted. Bringing it all the stops tonight.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of Council. As noted, the application before Council tonight is a zoning amendment for the purposes of rezoning the subject property, which is to permit the construction of an additional residential unit at 131 Francis Street in Lucan. The subject property is a 647.5 square meter parcel, which is situated near the intersection of Main Street and Francis Street, with a lot frontage on the south side of Francis Street. The existing land uses surrounding the property include a single detached dwelling to the north, east, and south, with mixed use commercial and residential uses to the west. As such, existing land uses are both in a mix of residential and commercial. The lands are designated settlement area in the county official plan, mixed use residential in the local official plan, and zoned residential first density zone in the township zoning bylaw. The applicant is seeking to amend the zoning of the land for the residential first density zone to the mixed use residential MUR zone for the purpose of accommodating an additional residential dwelling unit within the existing structure. The mixed use residential zone permits the use converted dwelling, whereas the existing R1 zone does not permit the construction of an additional residential dwelling unit. The existing house is municipally serviced and gains access from Francis Street. The application was circulated in advance of tonight's public meeting in accordance with Planning Act requirements. No comments were received from the public in advance of the meeting. Generally speaking, the provincial policy statement, County of Middlesex official plan, and Township official plan provide policy direction encouraging development and redevelopment opportunities on full municipal services, provided that the proposal is compatible with the surrounding area. The mixed use residential designation in the Township official plan encourages a range of residentially compatible commercial uses to be implemented through zoning. The plan also encourages these types of uses to integrate into the existing residential areas by encouraging the adaptive reuse of existing residential buildings, while also respecting the residential character and aesthetics of the neighborhood. The applicant is proposing to add, as noted, an additional dwelling unit in the pre-existing residential building, necessitating the rezoning of the lands. Based on the existing policies and designation of the property, planning staff find that the proposed zoning bylaw amendment conforms to the policies of the township's official plan. With respect to zoning, staff find that the existing lot fabric is capable of meeting the minimum bylaw provisions for the mixed-use residential zone. As such, planning staff are satisfied that proposed zoning bylaw amendment would conform to the provisions contained in the township comprehensive zoning bylaw. Given the above, planning staff recommend that the application for zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 09/2020 filed by Mike Radcliffe on behalf of Jacob Radcliffe to rezone the lands from a residential first density R1 zone to a mixed use residential MUR zone for a property known municipally as 131 Francis Street, Lucan, and legally described as Part Lot 207, Part 2 of Reference Plan 33R13399, Plan 188 in the Township of Lucan Biddulph, County of Middlesex, be approved, and that the implementing bylaw be passed. Thank you.
Great. Any questions or comments from council on this one? I know I can see that Mike is on. I didn't know if he had any comments or whether he spoke to it when I was off in internet land. Okay, seeing none, the recommendation would be to either accept or reject the planner's recommendation, and I would entertain a motion at this time. Deputy Mayor,
To accept the motion.
to accept the recommendation.
Yep.
Okay, a seconder for that.
Second
Councillor
that.
Regan. Any further comment? All opposed, and that's carried. Thank you very much. We will need a motion to resume our regular meeting. I don't know, Tina, I know I mentioned the first decision of the Committee of Adjustments, but the other two will have to be signed. You'll let us know when the clean copy is available, and then you could just make sure you come in and sign those decisions. That's what will have to happen. Okay. And with that, can I get a verbal motion to resume or reconvene our regular council meeting? Alex and Daniel, or Councillor Westman, Councillor Regan, all opposed, and that's carried. So now we are in our regular meeting. Thanks very much, Dan Fitzgerald, for meeting with or joining us tonight. Thanks for your work on this one, and just to everybody, appreciate everybody's patience as I struggled there for a little bit with the internet gods. Okay. So moving on, we do have two delegations in front of us this evening. The first one, I am pleased to welcome Jennifer Kirkham, who will be presenting our Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan presentation. I've been working with Jennifer through the county on this for the last couple months, and it's at the point where a report can come to council and kind of update us as to what's happening. So welcome, Jennifer, and I will turn it over to you at this point.
Great. Thanks, Mary. Nice to see all of you this evening. I'm going to share my screen with you because I've got a presentation. So, as the mayor said, we're working on a community safety and well-being plan. This is a plan that is required by the provincial government under the Province's Safer Ontario Act. So every municipality across the province of Ontario is right now either developing a community safety and well-being plan or have developed a community safety and well-being plan. The purpose of the plan is to identify risk factors in your community that have to do with community safety and well-being, and then put together some strategies and an action plan to actually improve the safety and well-being of residents in your communities. The interesting piece about community safety and well-being is defined by this plan is it goes beyond sort of that traditional definition of safety, which we tend to think of as being crime or anything sort of police related. And it moves it to also include the social determinants of health. So things like poverty, housing, education, employment, overall well-being and wellness. So it's very broad in terms of the look, in terms of what you'll see in the community safety and well-being plan. So originally the province had mandated that municipalities had to prepare and have a community safety and well-being plan approved by January 1, 2021. And then COVID-19 happened. So there has been an extension that will be granted. So a new act, which was the Coronavirus Support and Protection Act 2020, allowed the Solicitor General to extend the deadline for the adoption of these community safety and wellbeing plans. We don't have a definite date as of yet in terms of the extension, but we're still on track probably for first quarter of 2021 and having a plan ready. I think that one of the interesting pieces about Middlesex and all the municipalities in Middlesex is that they decided to do a joint community safety and wellbeing plan. So instead of each municipality doing its own, all of the 8 municipalities have come together, including the County of Middlesex, to look at community safety and wellbeing sort of overall. So what we're doing in terms of the approach is we'll be looking for, are there priority risk factors for Middlesex County as a whole? And then we're also going to be diving in to look at each of the municipalities to say, what are the unique factors or differences in the municipalities that we may need to highlight in the plan? So some of the other requirements from the province is that there had to be an advisory committee. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that in a minute, as well as to go out and do consultations. So don't just sort of sit down in a room and develop a plan, but to go out and consult. So, and I'll talk a little bit about the community engagement strategy as I go through the slide deck. So this slide shows you the Middlesex Approach. We have 4 phases to the approach. Right now, we are wrapping up phase 2, which is the research and asset mapping, and we are fully engaged or involved in phase 3, which is the community engagement piece of it. And I'm going to talk you through each of those in terms of giving you a sense of what's happened in each of those phases. So project timelines, phase 1 was the project planning and onboarding. We did some kickoff. We put together the approach, the timeline. So that was between March and June of this year. The research and asset mapping started in April. We're going to be concluding that this month. You'll see the overlapping. So phase 3 started in June. It will run until October, and then we'll actually look at beginning to develop the plan starting in November and running through to March of 2021. So phase 1 was the project planning and onboarding. So we have sort of 2 layers of governance in terms of the community safety and wellbeing plan. So we have a project steering committee, which includes all of the municipal CAOs, as well as the Middlesex County Warden and a counselor from the Middlesex County Council. And then we also have an advisory committee, which, as I previously noted, is mandated by the province. So we have 19 members on the advisory committee. When we were looking at participation or membership in that committee, as you'll see from the sectors represented, we wanted to get a really broad cross-section of community partners and agencies and service providers on the advisory committee, because the advisory committee will really be working with me to sift through all of the data and information that we gather to help us actually define what will go in the community safety and wellbeing plan. So lots of different sectors are represented on that committee, which is great. So you see, we had the kickoff meeting in March with the project steering committee. We were planning on doing an earlier kickoff with the advisory committee, but again, with COVID-19, we had to switch to the online format, and people were sort of scrambling with other priorities. So we didn't do an orientation or kickoff with that committee until June. Phase 2 is part of the plan where we want the plan to be evidence informed. So we're doing a lot of data collection, as well as looking at local research that's been conducted in Middlesex to help us identify what should be the priority risks included in the plan. So you'll see that we're putting together a data package, which is probably going to be about a 100-page package. We're collecting a lot of data. You'll see the 14 different areas on your screen in the light gray boxes in which we're collecting data. There are multiple indicators in each one. So if we look at early learning and development, we're looking at kids and their learning going into kindergarten. We're looking at low birth weight. So we've got all different indicators in each of those 14 different areas. And what we're putting together right now is putting it all together into what I'm calling a data package, where you will have, if you're a nerd and you like looking at the data, you'll be able to go through all of the data, but then we'll have sort of an executive summary, which provides key highlights or findings in each of those 14 different areas. So that is almost complete. Phase 3 is also in progress right now. So that's the community engagement piece. We did a survey with community partners. So those would be not just service providers, but service organizations, associations, conservation authorities, so a whole range of different community partners. We did an online survey with them in June. We actually have a list of about over 170 community partners who we sent that survey to and who we're trying to engage throughout the process of developing the plan. To date, we've had 50 responses to that community partner survey. I'm calling it an initial survey because we asked them just some, I'm calling initial thoughts. So we asked them, does your agency collect any data that you think could help inform the development of the plan? Are you aware of any local research we should be looking at as we're developing the plan? And then we asked for their initial thoughts around what do you think are sort of the top or pressing issues, challenges, or risks in the area of community safety and wellbeing that we should be looking at in our plan. So we asked them to identify their top 5. So we're getting sort of a first look at what they think should be in the plan. And then we also asked them, are there any differences across the municipalities? So we gave them the list of the 8 municipalities and said, are there some unique things in terms of community safety and well-being that we should be looking at in any of those municipalities? So that's almost completed now. We'll be doing the analysis of that in the next couple of weeks. We also have on the go right now a general public online survey, which is a survey. We're looking at gathering the public's perception of community safety and well-being across 18 different elements. So asking them how they would rate the impact of, let's say, what's one of them, education or employment or criminal activity in terms of themselves personally, so individually or their family, people who live in their household, what they think the impact of that element is on the municipality in which they live, and then what they think the impact of that is in general or overall in Middlesex County. And then for each of the 18 elements, we've also asked them where they think it should be in terms of being a priority in the plan. So anywhere from being a very low priority to a very high priority. So we'll have the general public perception around community safety and well-being and what they think should be focused on in the plan as well. That can be accessed, you'll see on the website. There's a community safety and well-being website I'm gonna show you in a minute. The other piece we're doing with the general public, we're calling it Share a Story. So it's an open-ended where we're saying to people, you know, what would community safety and well-being look like to you? What would you see different in your community? We're asking people either to describe it in words or to upload a picture. So anything that they want to share around community safety and well-being that way. The other thing we're asking on the online survey is if individuals would be interested in attending a focus group or a community conversation circle in the fall. So in each of the municipalities, again, to get that unique flavor, I'll be holding a conversation circle in Lucan Biddulph where I will be inviting people from your community to come and chat about community safety and well-being and what it means to them and what they'd like to see. So an opportunity for some discussion versus a survey, which is just people telling you stuff, but you can't actually ask them about it. So it'll be more of a conversation around community safety and well-being. So stay tuned, that will be happening in the fall in your municipality. And then based on everything that we collect, we'll be identifying, are there other people we need to talk to, other interviews, other surveys that we need to sort of follow up on to help us get more of a sense of what should be in the community safety and well-being plan. So that's the community engagement piece. So then we get to that phase 4, which is sort of starting in November, running us through Q1 of 2021. So this is where all the pieces come together. So you'll see phase 2, where we are collecting the data, we're looking at local research, we're going to do some local asset mapping in terms of what's already happening in each of our communities in terms of addressing community safety and well-being. We'll be looking to the surveys and discussions we have with community partners in the advisory committee, and then the responses from the general public to the survey, as well as the community conversations. And we'll be putting it all together to actually identify what priority risks we want to see be the focus in a community safety and well-being plan. That's where the advisory committee will be playing a role with me in terms of looking at each of those pieces and helping to identify what they think should be the priorities in the plan. So as I said, that's something we'll be looking at having ready in Q1 of 2021. As a local municipal council, you will be receiving a copy of the plan to take a look at, provide some feedback before you actually approve it and it gets forwarded to the province. So as I said, there's a website. So if you want to take a look at that, middlesex.ca/CSWB, Community Safety and Wellbeing. It has sort of 3 different pieces. You can get updates. There's a button for get involved. There's a button that tells you a bit about the project. So that's a great spot if people are looking for information about it and or if you want to stay informed about what's happening. The link to the general public survey is on that website. The link to the share your story feature is there. There's also a contact form if people have questions or comments that they want to share about the project. And as well, there's a dedicated email to the project if people want to email in comments as well. So that's all I have for you about the project, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about the project.
Okay, thanks for that, Jennifer. It certainly is a lot of work, and I know Ron will agree with me that there's been a lot of hours put into it at this point, And it did make sense for the municipal partners in Middlesex County to do this collectively, because there's so much overlap between the communities. So I think this will be a good project for all of us. Questions from council? I saw Deputy Mayor Mander's hand up, and then Councillor Reagan.
Yeah, lots of input, surveys, everything in your thing. But one thing I find lacking is are you going to be giving implementation plans, like whether, you know, all these findings, that this is best to implement all these findings from health unit, Parks and Rec, CAO, council needs to do this. Like what drives me nuts on surveys is there never seems to be the people that do them and take all the input is to give the implementation plan of who's responsible that they feel to best correct the problems of the findings. I don't believe you had implementation and recommendation of who's going to do that I saw.
That's a great question through you, Madam Mayor. It's yes, there will be. So there'll be, when you think about the plan, there'll be priority risks identified as well as strategies that should be undertaken and actions around them. The one, I think, great piece about the community safety and wellbeing plan is the province said not just municipalities develop a plan, because as municipalities, you aren't necessarily responsible for implementation in each of the areas around community safety and wellbeing, but they really want this to be a collaborative effort where you have agencies, service providers, organizations coming to the table and being facilitated by municipalities to say, this is what we think the priorities are in our community. These are the strategies or actions we want to take, and identifying then who's going to do what. So it's actually the agencies coming to the table. They're going to, like you said, they're going to have to agree to move forward with it, because you as a municipality can't implement it. It has to be implemented by, you know, agencies and service providers that work in those areas. So that's why we have the advisory committee that has the 19 agencies represented from different sectors, because they're going to have to actually implement it. So having them at the table to design it and talk about what actions and strategies they're going to put in place will then move it into implementation. And I agree. I think any planning document, and one of the pieces I put on my list to follow up with is, once you have that planning document, is what kind of governance structure do you put in place around implementation? So right now we have a project steering committee and an advisory committee to help create this plan. And then as you move it into implementation, what's the governance around actually ensuring there's some leadership or governance around moving it towards implementation?
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, yeah, it just seems like that's really missing though from the presentation, is implementation, who's responsible. And I do hope that that's what happens, because to me, that's the group that has failed this, or that's the group that should be credited for the success of it. But to not have that group identified that that's a problem in our area, then there should be a certain amount of time that group then has failed this or should be congratulated. So anyways.
Yeah, those are great points. Thank you.
Just on that point, and I'll get to your questions in a sec, Daniel, or Councillor Reagan, but just to the point about the, you know, the governance and the implementation and all of that. With a number of our planning documents, you know, like our official plan, for instance, you know, we're mandated by the province that it has to be reviewed every so often, updated, and all of that. Has the province given any direction as to what happens after these plans across the province? I think it's, and let's just be clear, this isn't just a touchy-feely project for Middlesex County and the 8 municipalities in the county. This is across the province. This is being required of all municipalities. So it's not just our little fun project here. It's required of the province of all the municipalities across the province. But Jennifer, has the province given any indication as to, once these plans are made, then what happens to them?
No, and I was actually surprised, because I agree with you, Madam Mayor, is that typically they do. So I know I do a lot of work in childcare, and they say every 5 years you have to renew a plan or submit a new plan, but they haven't with this. So in the initial Police Services Act, it just stated one had to be prepared and adopted by January 1. Doesn't mean it won't happen, but right now it's just sort of this one time it has to be prepared.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, Councillor Reagan.
Yeah, I was just sort of following up with what Deputy Mayor said, because I agree 100%. That's missing about, as I have to ask the teacher question, right? Like, who's going to teach this when this comes out to, and the other concern I had too was, if I heard it right, so far in the survey, there's only been like 50 responses. And I'm just wondering, is that representative? We want to find out, what safety is to people. We have to make sure, I think, you have to have a much broader group of people, more than 50, or unless I missed that, I don't know.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. We just released the general public survey. So as of today, you have 50, but I agree, we want a lot more than 50 responses. I know when we were working on the community transportation, which your mayor would know about, we had about 500 responses. So I'd be looking for the same. And that's where we're looking to every municipality, especially in the summer, which is harder to use your social media channels to get the links out to the online survey, so we have more people responding to it. There's no deadline for it. We said we're going to run it through August, but I said I'll look at it sort of as we're going along. And as you said, Councillor Regan, if we're not seeing a great response rate, we're going to keep it open and keep trying to push it, because we do want to make sure we're hearing from people. And the other thing I'll be watching in the online surveys around responses, are we hearing from each municipality? So did we get responses from people who live in Luke and Biddulph, or did we only hear from people who live in Thames Centre? So making sure we're getting a good response rate across each of the municipalities. I think that's important as well, because we want to get a clear picture of what's going on in each of the municipalities.
Follow up, Madam Mayor. No, I'm also concerned too, making sure that we've got the right demographic, because what I think is safety, as a 65-year-old is not the same as a 16-year-old. So we really, I think it has to be inclusive. And I think that's very important. Not when you just say it's all the municipalities, because there's different issues in different municipalities perhaps. But it has to be an age thing as well, because we have to make sure we include. There's a lot of seniors out there, so to take those,
Well, Jennifer can certainly speak to who's on the advisory committee, and I think that if you look at the representation that's on the on that advisory committee, they've done a good job of pulling people from all different walks of life and different organizations, and they're going to be just as responsible as the communications groups in the municipalities to try and get the message out to participate in the community engagement. I believe there's a seniors organization from Dorchester representation. I believe that's where that came from, right?
Yes, and if I can add to that, on the survey, we're asking demographic questions so that, as Councillor Regan said, we will be able to know, are we getting a good cross-representation, as well as it will also help us to identify, do different demographics have different perceptions of community safety and well-being? So we're asking people their gender, the year they were born, if they identify with any subpopulations like Francophone, Indigenous, newcomer, person with a disability, person living in poverty, racialized person. We're looking at education, employment, and income. So again, because we want to know, like you said, do different demographic groups actually have different perceptions of community safety and well-being? So to me, that'll be the interesting piece as we get those general public surveys as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions for Jennifer? Councillor Masterakis.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Jennifer, for your presentation. A question on the data collection. You have it in 14 different areas. Are those questions standardized to other regions so that we can collaborate with on the same questions, the information, so we can build a Southwestern Ontario database? Is that something that is only our region that's come up with this questionnaire?
I just wanted to clarify, Madam Mayor, are you talking about the general public survey or about the data we're collecting?
The data, yeah, the population questions, crime, mental health, those 14, and the sub questions that may come out of that. Is that something that only our region is prepared, or is it standardized?
Yeah, it's a great question through you, Madam Mayor. I mean, every municipality, they're at different points. So in terms of the data collection, I'm also leading the Elmer Elgin St. Thomas Community Safety Wellbeing Plan. So it's the same general public survey. They added a couple of different elements. They have 20, you have 18, but we'll be able to do some comparisons that way. Same thing with the data packages. We're collecting the same data or indicators with those municipalities. The general public survey, municipalities are using all different kinds of tools. The one that I've used, Ottawa has used as well. So there could be some comparisons to what they're seeing in terms of community safety and well-being. But for the most part, people are developing their own tools. I've tried to look to see if we could see some alignment or things that would make sense. But certainly with the Elgin group, we'll be able to do some comparison.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, thanks very much for that, Jennifer. Appreciate your presentation today. Just in getting the word out, are you going to be working like with the communications officers across the county so that there can be kind of that mass, social media blasts in a continual so that we can get as much public engagement as possible? Are you going to be doing that?
Yes, so Taylor Mooney from the County of Middlesex has developed some graphics that can be used for social media. She's developed key messages. She sent it out to all the local municipalities, and I poked her today, so she's gonna continue to encourage every municipality to continue to push it out through the social media channels. We're trying to push them out at least once a week to continue to keep it in, sort of top of mind of people.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks again, Jennifer, and we'll certainly look for updates as this process goes on. And I would encourage all of council at some point to go on and take the survey yourself. So, because it's important to look at it all. So at some point, if you guys take the survey, that would be great. Okay, thanks very much, Jennifer.
Thanks.
Thanks. Okay, next up is Sheila Hodgins from the Lucan Area Heritage Society. Welcome, Sheila. It's great to see you tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. So good evening, and thank you for your time. I'd just like to take a few minutes and share a few updates with what's going on in our museum with COVID right now. So, as you know, we had to cancel our planned celebration with the community of our 25th year anniversary of the opening of our museum. And this was a huge disappointment for us, since this is an achievement that we're also very proud of. We will be celebrating this milestone next year. I'm very hopeful. I'm going to move my screen a little bit. I just see too much of me. We also canceled our 50s rock and roll event, and we have rebooked it for June 12th, 2021, with a backup date of June 11th, 2022. Our Christmas home tour and Pioneer Tea was canceled as well. And an even tougher decision, we had to close our museum and escape room, but we're hopeful and pretty confident that we can bring all of these cancellations back again in 2021. We applied for a JCP grant for 2 people, and we have been approved in previous years, so we're quite hopeful that we will get approved this year. JCP is a job creation program funded by the provincial government through EI, and candidates must be collecting EI. I don't know if you're familiar with JCP. Their wages are 100% funded, so there's no cost to Heritage. Once approved, their start date will be the 1st of October. And for safety reasons, one can work upstairs and the other downstairs. And their role will be to review and refresh our collection through the possible deaccession of surplus or damaged artifacts. So that's a year's position. So that's good for us if we get it. We applied for the COVID-19 Emergency Support Fund for Cultural and Heritage, and we received notification that we have been approved for financial support for that. And I believe it's $10,000. We're just waiting for a call from one of their program officers to go through all the rules and regulations and all that good stuff. We will also be applying for the Ontario Trillium Foundation Resilient Communities Fund, which is a grant giving financial support to help the nonprofit sector. The cutoff date for this grant is September 2. And thanks, Ron, for sending the information on this grant for us. If we were approved for this grant, there are many possibilities for us to adapt to new and different ways of setting up our museum so we can meet the changing health and safety requirements. Just a few that just came up very quickly. We could purchase equipment and protective items such as disinfectant spray bottles, masks, plexiglass for the gift shop and other displays. There would be a need to hire local people to help us with the construction to make some of these changes that we could possibly put in place. Make our museum one direction, remodel it, and putting the theater perhaps at the beginning and moving people through in an S formation. Use loudspeakers for our tour guides to maintain social distance. The same for internet connection to the log cabin and barn. Folks could follow the arrows and head right outside. Create a more robust website that allows us to sell gift shop items directly through the website, including the escape room bookings. So that would reduce point of contact and cash changing hands. Our touchscreen displays could possibly rest under a UV light to disinfect between uses. So these are just a few. A COVID project committee has been set up, and our first meeting is on August 19th. And I'm sure lots of more ideas will come out of that. And then we'll start looking at filling out the application and submitting it. So I just want to very quickly, you know, I think we all agree just how important our museum is to the community, to Lucan businesses, and to the township. But Danielle, you're fairly new. Peter, I don't know if you know a lot about our museum. I'm just going to very quickly go through some of the points of why we think our museum is really important to the community. On average, over 3,000 people visit our museum and escape room annually. Our visitors are literally from all over the world, but we do have many visitors within 100 miles of Lucan, and these visitors tell friends, which create more spin-off business. The yearly economic spin-off to Lucan businesses is significant, and this has been substantiated by a few of the local businesses that we've talked to. We hire local people, carpenters for new displays, cleaning service, electricians, plumbers, significant curb appeal to the downtown core. We are unique from many other museums in that we have two historical stories to tell, Wilberforce Settlement and the Donley tragedy. And as historians, it is our job to tell the stories as truthfully as possible without sensationalizing it as others have done many times. These two stories are widespread and certainly bring visibility to Lucan. We provide summer employment for 5 students and a supervisor year-round. The museum provides a unique opportunity for our residents to volunteer, especially our seniors, and to remain active and contribute to the community. And this has been very evident when we host a funding event. Our members help support other community events such as Canada Day celebrations, Bacon Fest, Santa Claus Parade, the Community Yard Sale, Lucan Memorial Center, the Lucan Library, the Lucan Legion. Our members sit on the Bacon Fest committee meetings and the Community Economic Development Committee meetings, as well as the Huron-Perth Middlesex Museum Network Committee meetings, which we had the opportunity to host in our museum. So that's why we think we're important. Included in your pre-mail is a financial report comparing revenues and expenses over a 6-year period, 2014 compared to 2019. Without going into a full analysis, account by account, I would say not unlike other companies or museums, occupancy type expenses and wages are always the biggest expense, and this certainly holds true for our museum. These types of expenses, some of them are pretty much out of our control, and depending on many factors, could and probably will increase year over year. Wages increased significantly over a 6-year period. In 2019, our net wages were 33% of our total operating expenses, and occupancy and wages combined were 46% of our total operating expenses. With respect to total revenues, for any museum, it is a challenge to sustain revenues on a constant basis, but so far over the years, our revenues have been fairly constant. Over the 3-year period of operating the escape room, for example, we made a net profit of $34,154, and that's a net profit. After COVID, we will certainly be reopening our escape room with a new design. While the increase in operating expenses is certainly a concern, our yearly membership contribution does exceed, as I said in the pre-mail, 3,000 plus hours, and that's probably in some years being it's probably more than that. These volunteer hours, they do continue to increase year over year, especially when we are doing a funding event. This is not sustainable for our members over the long term and is adding stress to our membership. And if we're to get new members, which hopefully we will, there is a little bit of a stigma to being a member of the museum, and that is that you have to work really hard, and it's hard to get people to work hard and not get paid. Anyway, this is why we made the decision last year to keep our supervisor on for the full year. And it certainly did alleviate stress in our membership, but it also became evident that with this extended work term, there were many administrative type duties that the supervisor did take on last year and certainly can take on going forward. So therefore, we are extending our supervisor's work term to 8 months, beginning April through to November 2021. Our cost for the 8 months, Heritage's cost for the 8 months would be $18,200, which includes our portion of CPP, EI, and vacation. And then also included is $4,000, which is approximately what our expense would be for 5 students. Young Canada Works is only 75% funded. Canada Summer Jobs is 100% funded, but we still have to pay our portion of CPP, EI, and vacation. So that's where we come up with the $22,200 for 2021 for 8 months at $17 an hour. So, however, as you can appreciate, we just can't sustain paying these increased expenses, including wages, year over year on a continuous basis. So on behalf of the membership, we are therefore respectfully submitting a request to the Township of Luca-Badal to include in their 2021 operating budget an increase of an additional $5,000, bringing their donation to the Donlin Museum in 2021 and each year thereafter to $20,000. This should carry us into the unforeseeable future. In closing, I would just like to take this opportunity on behalf of the Heritage membership to thank you, Mayor Cathy, and to Council for your continued support and financial support and assistance over the many years. We especially thank you this year for increasing your donation to $5,000. We certainly appreciate that, and it will help us a lot. Our museum, just in final, our museum, we've come a long way since the formation in the spring of 1995. Our background is steeped in cultural heritage, including the Wilberforce settlement, the Donley tragedy, and the Irish settlers. Our motto, remembering our past to establish our future, holds true today, and we as members of the Lucanary Heritage and Donlin Museum work hard to honor this motto. We look forward to continuing our partnership with the township in preserving Lucan Biddulph's rich history. Thank you for listening. Any questions?
Okay, well, thank you very much for that, Sheila. And certainly the request for the additional $5,000 for 2021 we'll take that up during our budget discussions in the fall. Any questions or comments for Sheila with regards to what she's presented? Councillor Regan.
Hi, thank you, Madam Mayor. Hi, Sheila. I'm just wondering, when is your membership drive?
We have them constant. It just never stops. We put it on our web page. We put it on Facebook. It's just constant. We don't really, we have set up a membership drive in front of the museum. We've served coffee and barbecued hamburgers, and people walk by. It's tough to have 60 plus people anymore to volunteer or to be a member. I don't know, people are younger today. They have money, they used to travel. It's tough, it's really tough. We have got, last year we got 2 new members. We have in total 26 members now, so that's good for us. We have 2 young, one I think is about 64, and the other one is 63. So this is young for us. We have a lot of members now in their late 70s, early 80s. So it's hard, and it's not without trying. We're on that all the time. We don't miss an opportunity when we have a funding event to again say, you know, if you'd like to be a member. I've met people at Tim Hortons, and I've gone over, you know, what we do, and we never hear from them. So it is tough. It's tough.
Councillor Regan's retiring soon.
No, actually, I was going to say, I'm so happy that you think that 65 is young. And I know a lot of retired teachers or soon to be retired teachers, so I may send them your way. So thank you.
Please do. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Dave, Deputy Mayor.
No, Sheila, I just want to thank you for coming this early, because that was wise. I mean, we obviously don't know the impact of COVID to our revenues and expenses. So really glad you brought this forward now, and certainly I think our group will work hard to accommodate your request. But no, just thanks for bringing this forward as early as you did. So.
Welcome. Thank you again, and I thank you again for all your support. We really appreciate it, and we need it. But we're still going ahead with 50. We have sold, oh gosh, I think we've sold about $1,300 in tickets. Now we had to refund some, but there's about $1,000 that just said, nope, keep the money, we'll keep the ticket, we'll come when you have it. So yeah, and the escape room we'll still do, and the Christmas home tour, I'm counting on a few of you to open your homes, but I'll be in touch with you, hopefully next Christmas. So we do have some good funding events coming up just to put us back where we were before COVID.
Councillor Mastraka, should a comment?
Hi, Sheila, how are you?
Hi, good.
Good. Question that on the financial statement, what is the student reimbursement amount under the revenue? What is that?
That's Young Canada Works. They give us, they reimburse us 75% of their salary, and then Young Canada Works, they reimburse us 100% of their salary. So if you look at these salaries, where am I here? Find my sheet. Salary. Oh, here we are. Yeah, if you look at the wages under revenue, the student disbursements, $26,712. So that's the 75% and the 100% for, the grants that we applied for. We apply for 5 students every year. And then the wages, 50,000. That's how much it cost us to pay our supervisor and to pay the 5 students. And so off of that will come the $26,712. Although there is a $5,000 entry that has to come off that 26,000. We had a late reimbursement, and a 2018 reimbursement went through in January of 2019, so I had to include it in there. But so that 26 is overstated by around $5,200. So
One
that's
more.
what, yeah.
Oh, no, thank you. That's good. And do you go around for donations from the service clubs as well? How many stops do you make? You're coming to us. Are there other groups you go to for raising funds for your next year's budget?
No, last year the Lions gave us a $2,500 donation, which was very lovely. And my plan was to go to the meeting and thank the Lions, and also let them know about the 50s rock and roll, but that didn't happen. No, I don't know what other service clubs we could go to. I don't think the Optimist could afford to give us a donation. I don't think the Legion could. I think only the Lions. And we would certainly go if you're a Lion member, I think, Peter, if you feel that the Lions would be receptive to us asking for a donation each year, we certainly would.
I'm a past Lion, so I can't speak for them, but I'm sure they're always meeting with you.
Sorry, I didn't hear the last part.
I'm sure they're always open to meeting with you, Sheila.
Oh, well, hey, okay, next year, 2021, I'll be there.
I just had a couple questions, Sheila. Do you happen to know, in comparison to other communities, like what other communities spend either on their museums or however they're supporting heritage in their community? Would you have any idea what some of our neighbors are spending?
Well, I do know how much funding other museums get from their municipality or the oops, hang on here. Yeah, we did look into what other museums, what their operating budget was and what they are receiving from either the municipality or the town or the county. Mm-hmm. Some of it is very substantial. Others is probably a little less, maybe with what we're getting from the township, but I don't know.
That might be good information for the budget, for our budget discussions. It's always nice to know, I think, how our neighbors are investing in requests like this.
Okay, well, we have it. I can email it to you.
At some point, yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, no.
And then just a couple other things, and maybe you can connect with Lisa offline over the next couple days. But Middlesex County received a substantial tourism grant, and it has to be spent by the end of the year. And there might be some ability to do something with that. You might have to make an investment on your part, like there might be funds that you'll have to be put in. But as I say, there is significant money at the county that got tourism dollars. So I think it's worth maybe asking those questions.
We will.
And then this is just a comment I have. It's just it's not based on anything, but the whole the last 5 months we've talked about all the things that COVID has taken away from us. And of course, you've had to make these decisions because of the situation we're in. On the other hand, I really do see it as an incredible opportunity for the museum coming out of it. You know, the one thing that we keep hearing is, you know, I think our travel is going to be restricted for quite some time. There's a huge push to, you know, keep it local and support our local businesses and tourist attractions. And, you know, having your staff in place for a longer period of time, I think could play in quite nicely for next year for you, because I think people will be looking for opportunity to see what's in their backyard. So,
oh, I think so too, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. That's why we're hoping, number one, that we do get this grant that Ron had sent us through Ontario Trillium Foundation, because we can make, you know, a lot of changes within the museum for the health and safety of our visitors and promote it that way. So we're really going to really focus on that. You know, as I said, we've started a COVID meeting, and we'll get that application. So hopefully we do get that, because that would certainly benefit us and Lucan for sure. Get more people into our little town.
That's right. Okay, well, thank you very much for that, Sheila. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll be back in touch in the fall after our budget discussions.
Okay, and I don't know what happened to Jackie. She was supposed to be here too, but she's way up north somewhere, so maybe they don't have speedy internet. Anyway, thank you again, and thank you for your support. Thank you, and thank you for the $5,000.
Yeah,
thank
great.
you.
Thanks, Sheila. Okay, yeah.
Bye. Now I'm not sure how to log off.
Okay, all right, moving on. My goodness. Okay, so we've got our minutes in front of us. We've got the minutes from our council meeting of July 14th and our special meeting minutes of July 24th. I trust that you've all had the opportunity to read through them. And if they don't need to be amended in any way, can I get a mover and a seconder to approve those? Councillor Westman and Councillor Reagan. And all opposed? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Business arising from the minutes. I don't think much has changed on that one. I know in the agenda meeting, I had brought up about the feral cats, and I think we'll probably be getting a report at some point in the early fall with regards to the money that was spent with traps and that sort of thing, and then going forward, so we can finally try to check that one off. If there's anything else that needs to be discussed through business arising, Ron.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did get an email from Stuart Finlater, who is our consultant charged with updating our official plan, and he has requested to meet with council. He's getting quite a few requests to meet with developers, and he certainly is trying to push them off. He does want to meet with council first to sort of get a bit of an orientation session and get sort of a sense of what council's priorities are. So he was looking at some possible times next week. If we could maybe, I think I sent out the email to everybody earlier this evening. If you could get back to me with what days and what dates won't work for you and what will work for you, and then we can through Tina, we can kind of coordinate a date and time that you know, I think it's important that all 5 members of council absolutely need to be there for this, and that you know, it's probably going to be, you know, I think it's going to be more than an hour because these things tend to sort of grow a life of their own, and we start going down tangents, and it's good discussion. It can be an in-camera session because it does pertain to training, and it does talk about certain areas, and there's a bit of sensitivity as far as development lands go. So again, if I could encourage council to respond to that email with some dates and times and coordinate that through Tina, then we can set it up from there and move forward. So thank you.
Okay. Moving on to Dave, Deputy Mayor.
But I guess my question is it should the meeting be not about land specific in area, but you know, does he, you know, what are our needs in Lucan Badolf whether it be, again, geared to income percentage apartments, one floor, condos for seniors. I don't know, whatever, soccer fields within a development. I mean, I think we all got a lot of thoughts on what Luke and Biddulph needs from input, but I don't, specifically located to me is going to be, how does our vision create then the land specific area, and are we kind of the cart before the horse here? Because I don't know how much I want to talk about land specific, site specific, anything, to be honest.
Yeah, Ron, I don't think that that's what this meeting is going to be. I think it's the initial discussion between him as our consultant and what the next few months are going to look like.
Correct. That's it. It invariably starts to go down that path, but it's up to Stuart to rein everything in and go, okay, we're talking about sort of mom and apple pie type issues first. But yeah, it's a very informational and educational type meeting. I think everybody will get a lot out of it, and it certainly sets the stage for what to expect down the road. And he does want to, like I said, he does want to meet with the 5 members of council first before he does meet with any individual developers and landowners. So.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments on that? Okay, moving on to correspondence. As always, there's a number that have been received. And the first one is with regards to Bill 197. And Ron, did you want to talk to that?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So Bill 197 was passed by the province. And what that does is it allows municipalities to consider the continuation of virtual meetings in the absence of an emergency declaration at the local municipal level. So right now we are able to host a virtual meeting under the authority of the emergency declaration that Luke and Biddulph enacted back in March. So if we want to continue, or if council wants to continue being able to have these virtual meetings without without being under an emergency declaration, what needs to happen is we need to amend our procedural bylaw to allow that. So I guess the first discussion amongst members of council is, do we want to continue with virtual meetings? And I think I get the sense from various discussions over the last few months is that everybody's fairly happy with this virtual meetings, and it does allow for more people to watch. It does allow people to watch later when it's maybe not a convenient time right now to watch. They can watch it the next day through YouTube or whatever. So I don't think there's, from a staffing standpoint, I don't think we can go backwards, because if we go back to just the way we were, I think that's a big step backwards to the public, and I don't think they would accept that. So I'll throw that open to the mayor and to the rest of council if that's the way, or if we want to continue with the option of having a virtual or sort of a hybrid type meeting. Then we need to, or council needs to give direction to staff to prepare the proper amendment to the procedural bylaw.
So before I open it up for discussion, I'll kind of give you the background of what's been happening with our neighbors. So the county has changed our procedural bylaw. So we will always have the option of being able to meet virtually or in the hybrid situation. The county has not lifted their state of emergency at this point. So obviously we're still meeting virtually. Many of our neighbors have already adopted procedural bylaw updates to allow, once they come out of emergency, for the option of electronic or of the virtual meetings or the hybrid. I would say that is the way to go. I don't think we want to lose that option, even when we get to the point when we are able to meet physically. I think that it is, we're a small group, and we may be able to think that we can meet in person, but once you start to put the 2 meters in between everybody, and when you add staff and council, our council chambers which the CAO of Middlesex County likes to call them the Taj Mahal of chambers in amongst our municipal partners, all of a sudden becomes quite small. And I don't believe that we would all be able to meet at this point with the 2 meters or have any presenters there. That being said, I still think when those restrictions are lifted, the ability to meet virtually, or if you can't come into the township office for some reason because of weather or that sort of thing, we still need that sort of ability. So I would encourage council to support updating the bylaw to give us that option once emergencies are lifted. And that's my 2 cents and the background of where everybody is across the county. Any other comments or questions from council? Councilor Mastarakis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd support the position you're looking at. Happy with that. The other comment I'd make, is there a way when we're doing this sign off of some of these documents like earlier tonight, is there a DocuSign approach where we can sign during the meeting, after the meeting, or something to that effect? But that's a separate piece. But I support the virtual plus hybrid going forward.
I know that Tina and I have talked about that electronic signature, and I believe that that staff is moving towards that, so that we can do that electronic signature, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. I thought maybe that eventually that will be coming down the chute. So any other comments or questions on that? Councillor Regan? Did you? Oh, no. Okay. Sorry.
No, I was just no, I was just thinking about, I actually like being in chambers, and I understand what you've said, and I've made that, I've asked a couple of times. I don't know what it is. Maybe, we weren't going to mention age, I'm sure, but anyway, I just like, I kind of like it, and I don't want to see us losing that.
No.
I don't know if that, and I get the 2 meter, I totally get that, but I'm just kind of, I sound silly, and I miss it. So I'm just wondering. So I mean, it sounds like we're not going to be able to do it though.
It's not silly at all, and I will share with you. Last week, County Council, and we did have our special meeting to update our procedural bylaw, and we actually did it in person, and for a number of reasons. And it really, I was kind of surprised actually at my reaction at having everybody in the council chambers. And there is something to say about governing together. And so I don't think that that will ever be lost, Councillor Regan. I think that optimally, everybody wants to be together in the chambers to move forward the business of the municipality. There are other things we have to consider too in a hybrid model, just how from technology, how that looks like. And, we've talked about it in the past about investing in infrastructure to allow us when we were in council chambers to broadcast either via YouTube or everything. So that will have to be an investment that will be made as well, so that we can continue this, because to Ron's point, we are far more accessible in this manner than we were before. So.
Nope, I got it. All right, thanks.
Ron, did you have a comment?
Well, I was just going to mention the fact that we need to deal with the technology. So we have been in touch, or we will be in touch with county IT to figure this out, because we're in the same boat as a lot of other lower tier municipalities. How do we get members of council back into the chamber and still be able, like you said, to broadcast, whether it's live on YouTube or Facebook Live or whatever manner. And we need to get a good enough camera that captures sort of the panoramic view of the council chamber, so you can get everybody, including staff, in there, and any possible presenters. And then that also has to be tied in with the audio, of course, because a picture with not proper sound is not good either. So we don't want to do something that we're not proud of, or that doesn't really serve the purposes that we're aiming for. So there's a few hurdles we have to cross here yet, but I think I'm getting the sense that everybody is in favor of moving forward. And Councillor Reagan, we'll get you back in the chair, don't worry.
Okay, were there any other items that we received through communications that council wanted to speak to? Councillor Masterakis.
Just if you had any comment, if maybe Ron had any comments about the South Huron's notice of subdivision. Why do we get that? And maybe how does that impact Luke and Badulf in any way, that project?
Well, I'm glad our planner is still on our meeting here, because I did send him that copy and said, historically, we have not commented on other municipal applications. But to answer your first question, why do we get it? We get it because that development is within, I think it's probably 1 kilometer of our boundary. And so by virtue of location and distance from our boundaries is the reason we get notice of it. But I'll defer to Dan to answer the second part of your question there.
Sure. Thanks, Ron. So Ron is correct. So generally speaking, if it's within a certain distance of a boundary, we will get circulated on notice. And then just generally speaking, when it comes to larger plans of subdivision, official plan amendments, as a courtesy, generally speaking, we tend to circulate to the heads of departments for the different counties abroad, just so that if there are any comments, concerns that they could see, more as a professional courtesy, that they can provide those comments back to us. And it also just kind of gives a heads up as to what's coming down the line in terms of Southwestern Ontario in general, and what types of developments we're seeing.
Do you see any, if they're running water, sewers, whatever they're doing to that area, can you see any opportunities for Luke and Badulf to piggyback a project if it were 1 kilometer apart? Is there opportunities that way in that region? Again, this could be down the road through our review of our official plan and other items, but that's the type of thing that we could potentially see as an opportunity in this municipality.
Through the chair, generally speaking, so yeah, I've seen it before in municipalities where they enter into shared servicing agreements based on proximity to things like sewage treatment plants, whether it's a water treatment plant, those types of instances. So it certainly could be something to consider in the future, for sure.
Thank you.
Any other items that wanted to be pulled for discussion? Okay, and I know, Tina, that I have asked you before, but do we get the minutes from the Board of Health? Do they get sent to you?
They do, and I believe the last meeting we got.
Last meeting?
Yeah, we had 2 included then.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure, because I know that was key to their communication. Okay, with that, I just need a verbal motion to accept these items for information. So if I can get a mover and seconder for that, Councillor Masterakis and Councillor Westman, all opposed, and that's carried. On to committee reports. Anything from CEDC?
No, we haven't met since the last meeting.
Yeah. Blue Water Recycling.
A meeting a week from Thursday.
Okay. Nothing from Lake Huron until October. Nothing from fire boards. ABCA and Upper Thames, Alex. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, we have a meeting next week with Upper Thames, and basically what the content of our meetings is talking about COVID response and safety for the public, safety for our staff. We do have some parks and amenities that are open, and so we're working diligently with our staff to make sure that they're safe and that we can keep areas like washrooms and common touch surfaces clean. So there are some budget implications, but we feel confident that that's not going to be have an impact on the member municipalities. So.
Great, thanks for that, Alex. Parks and Rec. Nothing. Okay, thanks, Paul. Moving on to staff reports. We've got some policies that Tina's brought forward. Do we want to do that first, or Ron, did you want to do your report first? Who wants to go first?
I can go first if you'd like, Madam Mayor.
Sure.
The first one, I emailed out the health and COVID-19 health and safety training slideshow just in case this didn't work. Does everybody see that on their screen there? Perfect. Okay, excellent. And there we go. Okay, so what we've done, and thank you very much to Joanne and Maggie. They've done a lot of work on this health and safety training for COVID. And what we've done is I've met individually, or not individually, I guess, with the managers first for training purposes to go through this and what needs to happen as far as education and everything for not only the managers, but also our individual employees, what they need to know from a health and safety standpoint, and what our requirements are with the Ministry of Labor. So, we talk about how does COVID-19 spread? We talk about things like respiratory droplets, close prolonged personal contact, touching something with the virus on it, and then obviously touching your nose, your mouth before washing your hands. We talk about screening requirements. Screening signage will be posted at all facility entrances, and this is not only for this facility, but also the Lucan Community Memorial Center, things like the Public Workshop, etc. We want to make sure that we avoid contact with people who are sick, and we need to self-screen before every work shift. And if you are sick, you need to stay home. And this pertains not only to COVID-19, but it's a good policy with regards to when it comes to things like flu as well. So we've also got what they call a point of interaction risk assessment questionnaire, or a public works screening checklist, depending on where you are. So, for example, when somebody comes into the office, and they have to fill out a contact form stating who they are and how to get a hold of them, and that's for contact tracing purposes. So before everybody comes to work every day, we need to make sure that we're asking ourselves as employees, and that's right from everybody from myself right down to the roads employees in the public works department to Paul's employees over at the arena complex there. Are you experiencing any of the symptoms? And I'm sure everybody's sick and tired of hearing all the screening questions, but they are something that has to be done on a daily basis. Some larger groups, they have an electronic version that's available on everybody's phone. That costs a bit of money, and we're not really large enough to do that. So although it's a bit of a pain, we have to fill out those sheets on a daily basis. So what we have is what you see on the screen there, employee daily screening tool. So Paul's got these at the arena. We've got them at the back door when people come in. We've also got them at the Public Works building, and every employee has to fill out these on a daily basis when they come into the office. And they'll keep track of them. They need to be signed, and they need to be submitted on a bi-weekly basis with their timesheet. So we're tying this in with submission of their timesheet. And they only have to be filled in if you come in to work during that day. If you're working from home that day, you don't have to fill one in. So the screening signage, you'll see these on the entrances to all of our facilities, really. So I'm sure people are going to get familiar with that. We talk about access controls. We talk about screening for employees. And again, where those forms are located, they are located, if nobody should run out of those forms, they are located on the data drive under the COVID-19 folder. So we talk about employee responsibilities, what they're responsible for versus the supervisor responsibilities. And again, we all have good people working for us. We have smart people working for us, but again, it's something that has to be hammered home, and it has to be on paper so that if a Ministry of Labor representative comes in, we can explain what we've done, and it's in black and white and in the file. We talk about the payroll designate responsibilities, and the payroll person is going to gather up all these employee screening sheets on a bi-weekly basis. We have to keep them for a month. And again, that's more to do with contact tracing purposes if someone does get sick. So we talked about a little bit earlier about this point of interaction risk assessment. So again, there's visitor logs. You can call our visitor logs at the front desk. We're going to try and keep most people away from our facilities, obviously, as best as possible if we can. We don't like to say that the municipal office is closed. We like to say it's open, but it's controlled entry. So it's about getting the proper message out there, and I believe it's working. I think I've been asking this question of the members of council if they do hear anybody that is complaining that they haven't been able to get what they needed from the municipal office because the door is closed. That's because they really haven't followed the directions that is at the front door, because you can knock on the window or call and we will deal with them immediately. So there's no upset person because they can't get service at the municipality. So on your screen there, you'll see the point of interaction assessment form. On the left is the regular questionnaire. On the right-hand side is the contractor screening checklist. So for example, when Jeff or Paul has a contractor coming into the facility, this is the form that needs to be filled out and kept track of. So we talked about hygiene requirements. Again, it seems fairly redundant, but again, it is for training purposes, and we need to have something in writing and explain this to all of our employees. When to wash or sanitize before and after entering facilities. You'll notice the blue bottles that are on everybody's desk around the council table. Those are pump bottles with the hand sanitizer. So you really can't turn around anymore without finding some sort of hand sanitizer bottle somewhere. We talked about PPE, personal protective equipment, whether that's gloves or whether that's, thank you, Madam Mayor. So they're everywhere. But we do have, a large supply of PPE so that nobody can say that, well, I didn't have a mask. There's no reason to say you didn't have a mask. So, and people, we find people are very good. I think they're very accepting of the new mask requirements. I don't believe there's one person that has come in that we've had any issues with. Immediately you see them get out of the vehicle and you see them put on their mask. So that's, I think that's a positive step. We have signs up in the washrooms, wash your hands, hand hygiene. We have signs for coughing and sneezing etiquette. Again, very basic stuff, but it's stuff that needs to be education in the education program. We talk about cleaning and disinfecting requirements, and I guess maybe now is a good time to mention that these were done probably about a month ago when they were first started, and we piggybacked on a number of other municipalities' programs as well. This is kind of evolving. Like, I don't know if anybody's heard in the last week, but the health unit has started to, question whether, how long does the virus actually last on a surface, and whether, what is the requirement for disinfecting and things like that. So again, these rules are going to change as we go forward in time, and we're going to have to modify our training as we go forward and more information does come about. So we talk about, everything from your desk, your individual space. And we are fortunate, to the county CAO's comment, we are fortunate, very fortunate here that each employee virtually has their own workspace and their own office. So we aren't on top of each other. We don't have cubicles crammed in a certain smaller space or anything like that. So we are very lucky in that regard. And again, we have lots of supplies on hand. So we talk about clean desk and office protocols. And just so council knows, we have an office cleaner that comes in once on the weekend, typically on Sundays, and she does the main cleaning on the weekend. And she also comes in on Wednesday night. Wednesday night's a bit of a quick clean. She empties the garbage, cleans the countertops and things like that. So we do have a cleaner. We don't have a professional cleaner at the shop. The public works guys actually look after their own stuff there, and the same thing at the community center facility. Paul's employees look after all that as well. So on the screen there, you'll see more signage that you'll see in the kitchen areas. The next screen here is the vehicle sanitation checklist, and one will be with each piece of equipment. And Jeff, you can pop in here, but each vehicle has to be looked after. It depends on who's responsible for it. I believe, Jeff, if you I don't know how you did that with your training there, whether one person's responsible for a piece of equipment or everybody's responsible. You have to assume that it's not clean, and when you get in, you clean it. Is that correct?
Yeah, Ron. So the way it works is a driver will disinfect the vehicle after they're done. So that way, then if say someone leaves at noon or someone gets out of say a backhoe at 10 o'clock and somebody needs to get back in that backhoe at 11 o'clock, the unit has been cleaned or disinfected from driver to driver. And then each time it's disinfected, there's a checkbook in the or logbook in the unit itself. It's a simple checklist. You sign off on it and you date it and you put the signature down that it has. I have asked the crew that for if there was ever a reason that the sanitization or disinfecting didn't get done, say in the middle of the night during a storm of some sort, that the piece of equipment be taken out of service, and your supervisor is notified that that piece of equipment is out of service until someone can disinfect it and continue the use with it. So, so that's how we're doing it up at the garage. So,
okay, thank you. So again, the next screen there, what should you know? Commonly used cleaners and disinfectants are effective against COVID-19, and they all should have what they call a DIN number, a drug identification number on there. Obviously follow manufacturer's instructions for proper use. And stronger chemicals may require the use of disposable gloves. And then we talk about physical distancing. And again, everybody's almost numb when you say this. Everybody knows to keep 2 meters apart. But again, it's an important function, and that's been really hammered home by the health unit and the provincial and federal authorities. So. The photocopier is probably in the office the most used piece of equipment. So again, individuals are responsible for sanitizing before their use. So again, when you approach the machine, you're responsible for cleaning it before you use it. So everybody has a personal responsibility to do that kind of thing. Again, with respect to the offices, you're more or less responsible for your own workspace. Physical distancing posters, again, you'll see them out and about in various areas of all of our facilities. We talk about traffic flow and distancing signage. Obviously, in the case of emergency, the top priority is to exit the building. So if that means you're closer than 6 feet, well, then so be it. It's the lesser of two evils as far as that goes. If the building's on fire, just get out. Working with the public. So again, reception areas, customer service counters, lobbies, and other areas for the general public are being we have to look after those. And in our case, in the office, the lobby area is really looked after very well by Maggie. She does a good job. When she lets the people in, immediately after they leave, she wipes everything down. And we have the plexiglass up at the front counter to basically shield anything going forward. People are also wearing their masks. We've got the hand sanitization station right in front of the front counter there. So again, it's with the door locked, it does allow her the opportunity to ask the visitors questions like, do you need to come in? If you're just dropping off a payment, you really don't need to come in. So it's in their best interest from a visitor standpoint or from a taxpayer standpoint to not come in and have to mix with us. Plus, they really don't want to fill out that form on the front counter. So it's an opportunity for us to educate people that they really don't need to come into the office to make a payment. They can throw it in the drop box there by the side door, and they're good to go. If they physically want a receipt, I was talking to Tracy Loyens, the deputy treasurer today. She said all you need to do is just write, please give me a receipt on it. Write it on the thing you drop on the drop box, and we'll look after it from there. So again, it is extra cleaning, but I think with the reduced number of people coming into the office, because again, most people realize that they don't want to come into the office, and we are able to service, I would say, the majority of people without them having to physically enter the office. Offsite work protocol. This is more or less is Jeff's department and Paul's department, and obviously to a certain degree, building services, which is through Middlesex Center. So again, the key principle there is we need to protect our staff in all situations. So again, it's very important to keep your distance in the area of building services for inspections. I know Arnie and his guys are very clear that if they're doing an inspection, the site should be cleared for them. And in large part, I haven't heard any issues with regards to that. So I believe that system is working very well with regards to any of the water stuff. There are some instances where our water guys have to go into a house to inspect something or whatever. So the proper sheets have to be filled out, and all the personal protective equipment has to be worn. So again, there's the steps as far as the offsite work protocol. We talk about personal protective equipment, everything from gloves to the masks. Again, what is required for disposable gloves? What is required for medical masks? We talk about N95 respirators, which are not required. Obviously, fire services have their own stuff, and they are much better served with better equipment, really. But we talk about non-medical masks, optional if 2 meter distancing is maintained. So donning and removing gloves, while it may seem obvious as to how to put on a glove, there actually is a bit of a knack to it, and this poster actually details it quite well. And really the same thing with the surgical mask. You know, we don't want people grabbing the front of the mask to take it off. There's a proper way to take it off the loops around the ears and without touching the front of the mask, because if you do catch anything, that's where it will be. So it's, again, while it may seem very obvious, this is something that we need to do and make sure that people understand. So again, we talk about donning the masks, and then we move into psychological safety. So this is obviously, you know, mental health is a very important part of this whole scenario here. And I think, you know, we have various avenues to discuss any anxiety or apprehension. You know, we have to start the conversation, and don't be afraid to talk to your supervisor if something is making you anxious or if you're unsure. Okay, that's the worst thing to do, is hold it inside. We need people to talk about what's bothering them. If they're concerned, let us know what their concerns are, and we can deal with that. So again, from a health and wellness standpoint, we talk about the working from home part. The employer is still responsible for the employee, even if they are working from home. So that was a bit of an eye opener for me, because I thought, well, if somebody's just sitting at their kitchen counter and they fall off their stool, so be it for them, tough luck. But actually, it's not tough luck. It's actually our responsibility to make sure that they are properly set up and they are conducting themselves in a proper business-like manner, and not to run offside of any workplace health and safety rules. So when it comes to physical health, obviously healthy eating, physical activity, and adequate sleep are the three large components in maintaining your good health. When it comes to mental health, we've got you know, people and resources that we can use and call. Morneau Chapelle being the primary one. They've got their 1-800 online help for anybody who wishes, and that's a confidential line. And then the next page here, we've got more resources that are available to all our employees. Again, safety is everybody's job. We talk about the employees' responsibilities. So employees are responsible for themselves. I mean, they've been given the training, they know what needs to be done. It's their responsibility to make sure that they're wearing a mask when they're supposed to be wearing a mask. And you know, if they require different or more PPE, then that's their obligation, is to let their supervisor know when they're short of equipment. Then we talk about the supervisor's responsibilities, and we need to make sure that we give the employees what they need in order to be able to work safely. Again, be clear about your expectations of staff relating to workload, scheduling, et cetera, which may have been impacted by the pandemic. And then, yeah, thank you for your time, everybody. And again, we talk about the resources. The Morneau Chapelle brochure is available. And then, yeah, any questions? So in a nutshell, I know I went through it fairly quickly, but it's about 1.5 hours to 2 hours long, depending on questions. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that, Ron. I know a lot of work has gone into that, and I appreciate at every level how staff has put it together, and also, I mean, also how staff is adhering to, the questionnaires and all of that. Certainly a different time we find ourselves in. So it's, thanks for the work, but also thanks for the buy-in, because the more we do that, the healthier our work environment will be. Councillor Regan.
Yeah, I was just wondering, about the COVID app that the government has allowed. I downloaded it a while ago, and I just was wondering, just as one further step. I know a lot of things have to be in place for that to work, but I'm just wondering if that's something else we could have staff do, just to protect them a little further.
Sure, that's certainly something we can encourage people to take advantage of, really. So
Yeah,
one thing sorry,
no,
go ahead.
No, you go ahead first. Sorry, Ron.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, one thing I didn't mention was I had a discussion with Chief Ron DeBrouwer from the Lucan-Badal Fire Department today, and he was mentioning that he thought it was maybe time, once the school kids are back in class, that they would go back to normal as far as their groups of people. Right now, just so that everybody understands, they've split the firemen into 2 different groups to try and keep them separate as best they can. So they've by splitting them in half for training sessions, they can keep the 2-meter distance. They can't keep the 2-meter distance with everybody there. So he was thinking that maybe once the school kids are back in, that's the time that they'll get back together again. And I urged him to reconsider that and maybe hold off, because I said, if we get a second wave and somebody does get infected from the fire department, we can't afford to have all our firefighters off for 2 weeks. So, and I think it's those kinds of comments or those kinds of dialogue that makes you think, okay, maybe we should continue to do what we're doing to make sure that we don't have a lockdown. And certainly fire services, we can't be without a fire service. And we can say, well, we can bring in somebody else. Well, if we got a call in Ilderton, that's how many more minutes for response time. So it's in our best interest to sort of maintain the status quo. It's been working. We'll continue on with it until such time as maybe the vaccine is ready and it's widely distributed. But I think we need to sort of stay the course for the time being.
Any other comments from council on the PowerPoint that was presented? Okay, do we just need like a motion to accept for information?
Yep, sure. Thank you.
We can just get a motion to accept the PowerPoint for information. Mover and seconder, Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan. All opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. Okay. Do you have anything else, Ron, or?
No, I think we can move to the policies at this point.
Okay. Thank you. Tina?
Okay, Tina, over to you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Through you, Madam Mayor, there is a report in front of you regarding policies. As everyone's aware, staff has been working over the past year to review our current policy and procedure manual. And it was identified that HR policies was something that needed to be looked at, prioritized and updated first. In doing so, we created a policy working group between the mayor, deputy mayor, and all staff department managers. We've met twice. Policies that were included, there's 16 there in front of you. We have already passed 2 policies in this section. The policies developed were by reviewing our previous policy or completing a new one if one was needed or missing. Consultations took place with Cindy McNair, County Council Human Resources Department, and other clerks of lower tier municipalities in our area. So I'm going to kind of keep it short, but just to kind of briefly go through some of the changes. I did email out to you the previous policies, but it is a lot of reading. So I'll just kind of briefly touch base things that were updated as we go. So the bereavement policy was changed from 3 to 5 days for employees in the event of death of an immediate family member, and 3 days for extended, as opposed to 1 that is currently offered. That seems to be consistent with municipalities in the county. And again, that's kind of what we've been going off of. The jury duty and court appearance, previously that was one policy and they were separated into two policies for staff and council members. Jury duty for employees is fairly straightforward, but for council members, obviously it wouldn't apply for jury duty, but if it was a court appearance relating to township business, your pay would be based on our current committee meeting rate pay. So that's set out in that policy. The next was pregnancy, parental, and adoption leave. That was updated to reflect current legislation requirements. It should be noted there is a separate policy for council members that was passed in March of 2019. The vacation policy was reviewed with all lower tiers in the county. A few changes to remain competitive, consistent with others. The 3 weeks currently is earned after the end of your 4th year, and that was changed to at the end of your 3rd year. The 4-week entitlement remained unchanged and is currently arrived at the end of the 9th year. There was 5 weeks added after the end of 14 years of service as opposed to the end of the 19th year, and 6 weeks were added after 24 years of service, whereas currently right now we're capped at 5 weeks. Some municipalities offered a little more, but for the most part, this was consistent with our member municipalities. The stat holidays policy was just updated to reflect current legislation, i.e. Family Day was added. Nothing really too much change with that policy. The sick leave policy was updated to define procedures and what qualifies as sick leave. 12 paid working days remains unchanged as stated in the previous policy. Just kind of the process was defined better in the new policy. Short-term disability policy, short-term remains at 75% for 17 weeks, and the policy was updated to define procedures and requirements. And the long-term disability policy, we currently don't have one. It would just go in line with what our benefit carrier specifies. But this policy just kind of sets out who and what qualifies and what procedure to follow when applying for long-term disability. The hiring policy is something new that was added. We do have a hiring bylaw, which I believe, as Ron and I discussed earlier, is something that was required through legislation. But the hiring policy just kind of further outlines the procedure and implementation of recruiting and hiring of new employees. The hours of work was a new policy to define hours of work procedure. It's fairly standard. It does state in there that the hours of work are as defined unless otherwise stipulated by the employment contract. So any previous arrangements that are currently in place would not be affected if your employment contract stated so. The banking overtime policy was something created by our treasurer. That's something that she was looking to define and have a better procedure on for identifying the maximum number of hours any employee may bank, as well as encourages use of bank time and process for carrying over bank time if necessary. Currently, there wasn't anything that specifies that process. So this just kind of helps her out and streamlines that. The problem and conflict resolution, it was a new policy to encourage informal discussion and resolution of workplace issues. That one was a policy that, like I said, a lot of these were arrived at from using some of our member precedents, but that was one that thought would be a good idea to have in there. The employee discipline was an updated policy. We do currently have one, but this one just defines more specifically options for the CAO should discipline issues arise, or an appeal process by employees is also defined. The county had suggested that that would be something to include in our policy. The workplace alcohol and drug policy is a new policy to define consequences and procedure to be followed if and when use of alcohol and/or drugs are suspected. The policy does define non-prescription drugs, and in brackets includes cannabis, just to be more specific. And the last one is a work from home telecommuting policy. This is obviously something that has come to light in the past few months. It was the county precedent was used to follow that policy, and a lot of other municipalities are doing the same with that. So with those 16 policies, 9 old policies would be repealed and these put in place. And if there aren't any further questions, that's all I have to report this time.
Okay. Well, much like the COVID presentation, there has been a lot of work that you have taken on, Tina, and certainly we appreciate the updates. Certainly feel a little bit more comfortable with the policies that have been updated as you presented. So thank you for that and the time and the commitment that you've made to that. Any comments or questions on the policies? It certainly has been, as Tina said, a lot of reading. So appreciate that there's probably some discussion. Councillor Masterakis.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. I'd like to say do great work, a lot of work, a lot of time in the process, great collaboration. I was talking with the Deputy Mayor this afternoon and thinking about the community safety, well-being, and how it was collaborated with one committee. The thought process is there a lot of duplication of consultants, lawyers, as each municipality is doing this? If we've developed a great policies here through the collaboration, can this not be at a centralized database accessible by other municipalities, A, for the work being done initially, and then for ongoing maintenance? Like, it takes a lot of time to do the policies, but then when changes of legislation happen, there's a lot of maintenance. So is there the opportunity to have one group, maybe as Deputy Manager said, maybe we're the group, I don't know if we are, but that would handle this regionally, and maybe it's almost like a white labeled policy where any municipality can log in, it's up to date, here's the requirements for some of the ones that are fairly consistent and best practices. So I know great work on the policies. I'm just wondering if we can go the next step down the road and not have to duplicate your work or ongoing maintenance on our side, reduce your time and effort.
Ron, I saw your hand up, or Tina, did you want to chime in before Ron does?
I definitely agree, Peter. That's a great comment, and something that Ron and I have definitely discussed as well. Like the clerks right now, when we are developing new policies, kind of an email group goes around and we see who has what and we share each. But I definitely agree. It's something that we all have to have in place, and a shared service there would be beneficial to everyone. You know, some of us don't have the staff and resources to write these and be consistent with legislation where others do. And thankfully, everybody's good at sharing, and Jessica at the county is definitely very helpful. You know, she's a new HR position at the county, and maybe possibly in the future that might be something that we can look towards. I certainly hope so.
Ron?
If I may, Madam Mayor, totally agree with Tina. We had the discussion. Madam Mayor, I know you and I have discussed this before, and we are, to answer your question, Councilor Masterakis, we are heading in that direction. I know with the payroll system, the county got some money from the province to look at efficiencies. So specifically, they're looking at payroll, because why do we need umpteen number of payroll programs across the lower tiers? So that's one specific one they're looking at. But they also had another group that is looking at other areas, and HR is one of those areas. You know, we share things like some legal stuff and other services. Why not do this? And I think we are evolving into that as we go down the road. So absolutely, we can talk about it at every county CAO meeting coming up for sure. We'll keep pushing for this, because again, like Tina said, we are too small. You know, whereas Middlesex Center, Thames Center, Strathroy Caradoc, they'll all have their own HR people because they can keep them busy. But it's not just HR; it's health and safety stuff too that takes an awful lot of time. And you know, as we are getting bigger and we get more and more development pressures on us, it is becoming increasingly difficult to try and do a good job and maintain what we need to maintain. So good comment.
Certainly, I would think, yeah, the county got efficiency money, but so so did we. We were all recipients of modernization money, and that would be a great way for our neighbors and the smaller ones. I mean, that's a good place to start, in that sort of investment. So I would really, as you said, when you're getting together with your CAOs and your clerks and your peers, like, have that conversation how we can move forward, because I think you hit the nail right on the head, Councillor Masterakis. Dave, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, no, I agree. When I was talking to Peter, I was saying, like, it's amazing, the working group, and then you've got your CAO and yourself, Tina, and you mimic that with so many municipalities that again, we can handle our vacation policy, as our staff that portray, to Lucan, but a lot of these policies that are mimicked and identical across, I mean, it's just everybody doing this work, and we've done a lot of the work ourselves, I realize now, but I'm certainly in favor of a goal of implementing somebody else, ideally, or whether we're the lead and people are paying for our portion of that person. But I just think that, yeah, I mean, I just think that's a smart idea. That's all too. Like, I think, and keeping up with them too. That's the biggest thing is, so again, it's one thing, it's maintaining this, everything you just presented to us, maintaining it's probably the next biggest thing. And how do you know, when there's a change, and again, you're having all these same government employees having to go in and do a change and update, which there should be just, on the ones that are all the same, should be just one person. So just my thoughts too. So I hope you guys hope we can do that.
Any other comments for Tina? Okay, thanks very much, Tina. Anything else? That's all you've got this week?
That's everything.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, moving on. No building. I know Tracy's on the line for finance. Catherine's on holidays. So if there's any specific questions that anybody had for Tracy, now would be the time to put them for finance, excuse me. But I don't believe Tracy has, she's just here to answer any questions that we might have. Okay, where did I go? Shoot. I don't think there's anything else with planning. Public Works. Oh, Peter, sorry.
Apologies, I don't know if it comes under finance. In regards to vacations and with COVID, if people haven't had the time to take vacations, or you're managing that process, is there timelines when we would get notice 3 months ahead of your end, 4 months? Is there timing where council will get notice if we have to make decisions on something to that effect? So there's no surprises into next year's budget?
Yeah, like for carrying over?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Ron, did you want to take that on?
Yep, I'll quickly answer that. I have been on the managers to make sure that people take their holidays. Don't leave it. I know you can't travel off to far exotic locations, but this will be the year for the staycation, and I do believe that most people are going to be able to get their holidays in this year. So I don't, at this point, I don't expect any issues at the end of the year. So.
I guess, but to Councillor Masterakis' point, if we see something in October, then would be the time to start to have that discussion.
Right, yes. Yeah.
Okay, Jeff, Public Works.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. My first, well, I guess my only report, but then we'll get into some other things. My report tonight is on the master servicing plan that we put out, proposal that we put out on the services for sanitary, water, and stormwater. So it came back. Dillon Consulting assisted us in issuing it. It came back. We did an invitation to GM Blue Plan, Dev Engineering, and BM Ross. We sent them packages. We posted it on the website. We did have a another outside firm request information for a proposal. We got one back from BM Ross. Was reviewed by Dylan and myself and Ron. It meets all the requirements, and the bid on that study that came back in was $93,000. Just a little background on what that actually gives us. What this master servicing plan will provide the municipality. It's going to give us an update on what we've got in the ground, what's in the ground and what it can do right now. It's going to look at what development may happen, and for that development to happen, what we need to put in the ground. It'll look at what we need to put as an expansion on the sewage treatment plant. It'll list where pumping stations may have to go to expand the sanitary system. It'll give us a number that we can build out with our water system that we have now. So basically, this plan will be for the next 10 to 15 to almost 20 years of what we need to do in Lucan for infrastructure. It'll give us a blueprint on how we want to proceed. And then it's our choice whether we want to continue on with the development. At least we can let everybody know, whether it's council or developers, know what infrastructure is needed to move forward. So I think we all kind of have an idea that we're in certain areas such as sanitation and storm water. We need to get a handle on where things are going to go. So going back to that, we only do have the one bid. It does meet all our requirements, and it did come in at $93,000. On the impact of the budget on this, the one thing about this study or this proposal or this master servicing plan, it is all covered under development charges. It's all based on development, so this will all be paid 100% through the development charges. We have been collecting some. It has been in the development charges previously, even before the new one that we just brought out. It's in the new one that we have now, and we'll readjust it if we need to actually draw more to cover the cost. So I guess at that point, I would recommend that we continue on with this, and that we accept the BM Ross proposal for the Lucan Master Servicing Plan. So I'll open it up to questions.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Jeff. Any questions or comments? Deputy Mayor.
Just what is the timeline then again, Jeff? And with that,
okay, so through the mayor to the deputy mayor, we were pretty aggressive on this. We threw it out there. We want this completed in our hands by January, right, Ron? That we want this plan in place by the new year, because it's going to dictate how, this will play off on our expansion on our sewer plant. It'll dictate where some of our development is able to go. So it all ties in with the counties, with Stewart's work also. So we all gotta, these things all gotta mesh. So I think a lot of this stuff's going to come due in January.
And do you feel that they have the ability to meet your timeline?
Yeah, we actually met with BM Ross just to clarify a couple of these things. And that was one thing they did clarify, that they felt confident they should be able to make that timeline.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Any other comments? Okay, thanks very much for that, Jeff. Did you say you had a couple of other things too?
Yeah, I'll, the first thing is the township had a request to improve the Elginfield drain. There's a large bend in the drain, and it's an open municipal drain. There's a large area of erosion, and we had a request come in for improvement on that. Due to the municipal drain and the way it's set up, we actually need to appoint an engineer to do a bit of a small report on how to fix the erosion. So basically, I'm recommending that council appoint Spreetz to be the engineer on that report. So there'll be a resolution come forward on that at some point. So I don't know if anybody's got any questions on that.
I don't think so. I think that's pretty standard.
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. It's a small report. It's not a very big one either. So second thing, I just want to make sure everybody had an idea of what's happening. The traffic lights at Saintsbury and Richmond are out to tender right now. I am going to be sending out an email to all of council on an update with some information for everybody. It'll be interesting to see when the tenders come back, and I have some other information that I'll provide in the email. I'm hoping to have that to you this week, so you'll see something come across just shortly on that.
I think the tender closes tomorrow, doesn't it?
Does it close tomorrow?
I think it closes tomorrow. Yeah.
Thought it was this week, so should be some more information coming quite quickly on that.
Councillor Regan?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just wondering what the timeline. I'm getting a number of inquiries from residents about when this is going to happen. And when you're saying it's going out to tender, are we still looking at the fall, or has that changed, or what can I tell people?
I think and I don't want to I don't want to rush things out and get, because it does have to come back in, it does have to be reviewed, and we do have to see where it's going. I mean, the original plan just before the tender went out was to do some work in the fall on Saintsbury and move to the lights early in the new year to have everything completed by Bacon Fest. But I would suggest, once I get some more information, I'll get it out to you as quick as possible so everybody has an idea of what's happening, and we'll go from there. So.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Jeff.
Number 3, Nagle water main. Everybody's hooked up. Everybody's got water pressure. I think everybody's extremely happy with the water itself. We just got to get some lawns growing. We just got to get the landscaping finished up, and that project basically is done. So it's always the hardest part is always to finish a project. But I think everybody's extremely happy and satisfied with where we are sitting right now. So that's just an update for council. Number 4, we did have a large windstorm. We had basically a tornado touchdown. I think everybody knows the details on that. Just to give you kind of an update, during the storm, we did have a number of roads closed, Adair being the main one. We did hire an outside firm to help us reopen the road and did a lot of cutting and brushing with our crews. So we did look for some outside help there. They were in for a couple of days to get that road opened up and give us there. It was very localized. I thank Councillor Westman. He was out and about on Sunday morning and provided some good details for us. So that was good. So, but it was, if anybody drove down Saintsbury, it looked like a war zone, that's for sure. So, we had a water valve replacement, or we had a water leak over at the Nicoline and Kleinfeld. Staff repaired it. Pretty straightforward, but it's another repair on the infrastructure. And just a quick update, phase 4 is the next phase in Old Clover. Forever Homes is the developer that's going to start moving in there. They're getting really close to having building permits. So I would think in the next couple of weeks, we may be releasing building permits into that next phase there. So that's exciting. So we'll go from there. So at that point, I think that's the end of my updates. I know there's some questions coming, so we'll keep this moving along. So.
All right, thanks for all of those updates, Jeff. Ron, did you want to add anything before I open it up for questions?
I didn't want to steal your thunder, Jeff, but I was just going to get you to mention the MTO delegation meeting we have next week with Minister Mulroney.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So Kathy and Peter and myself and Ron, we're going to be meeting on Tuesday, right? Or Monday, Ron, right, Ron?
Correct. I think it's 3:15, I believe it is. But all we're going to do at that meeting is very low key. It's going to be very simple. We've been advised as of our last meeting in February when we met with the minister. We talked about the salt sands shed and being able to continue there, and we were told that we could stay there until 2024. And subsequent to that, we had another meeting with the local MTO people, and they really were kind of hoping to get us out of there. So at this meeting, all we're going to say is that we would like very much to stay until the end of the 2024 season, whether that's March 31st, 2024, or whether that's December 31st, 2024, whatever it is. But it's in our best interest, in our ratepayers' best interest to use that as long as we can. And really, that's all we want to say at this point. We understand that the local MTO officials would like to reclaim the space that we currently use to try out some experimental, I guess, melting agents. Is that the proper term, Jeff?
Yep.
So they want to use that space to be able to do that. But I mean, our position is our understanding is there's only 2 facilities that are in the province of Ontario, us being one, where it's a shared facility. Do they really have to use us and kick us out for that purpose? So we're hoping to be able to convince them to let us stay until the end of 2024, and hopefully we can figure out an alternative so that we don't have to spend, upwards of $100,000 to build our own salt sand dome.
Yeah, and to if I may, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Macaratis, we'll touch base on Monday and just make sure that we're all kind of on the same wavelength and everybody knows what's happening and that sort of thing. So we'll look to touch base on Monday, and that way we're all kind of ready for this. So it's going to be pretty low key, like Ron said. We want to keep everybody happy and keep this on a good feel. But we just want to make sure they know we want to keep it till 2024.
Okay, great. Any questions for Jeff on Deputy Mayor?
I can do it now, or I can wait till Councillor comments. Yep. Just Jeff, I think you know what I was talking about there earlier, but just again with that variance made me drive over there to have a site visit. And when I was doing a site visit, I was quite surprised at this, the standing water there, understanding that there was a rainstorm, obviously a lot over the weekend, but it's very clear there's no drainage by Pat's property there, by the chain link fence. And it's not a little bit, it's substantial. I don't know if you had a chance to look, but is there any remedy for that? Because that's concerning to me with the kids that are going to be in there. Who knows, this build could be 3-4 years like we put up with our township office. We don't know the build, how quick this is going to be. So what we see is what we get.
So and through the mayor, deputy mayor, a couple of things. We'll start what they've done there, which is an interesting thing. And I get it, is they actually have taken the grade down and enough that when they dig the foundations, the dirt they dig out of the foundation is actually going to build up the area around the foundation. So unlike a lot of times where you got a truck to fill away, they've put it down to grade to the point where when they dig the basements, the grade's going to come up. Having said that, and I know there's one spot over near Pat Ryan's place that had quite a bit of water in it today, and it is low spot. So that when it's finished and done, there is drainage all along the property line there, and it will come up and the water will flow towards Miller Street, the new bulb there, and there's catch basins and there's drainage and stuff in there. So I'm not so worried about final grade. I think that'll be fine.
I'm not worried. Like a grading plan will deal with that at final build. Yeah. Final build, we don't know when that is. Is there any remedy though for now to get that to the storm that the developer could do, or no?
Yeah, I think one thing, I think it's easy to talk to these guys and talk about some of the safety issues. It is a construction site. It is private property, but at the same time, if there is a concern about standing water that could end up being, mosquito haven for a long period of time, I think we got to talk about that and see what kind of remedy could be in place, and whether it's every once in a while they just pump the water away and get rid of it so it doesn't stand there and stagnate. The other thing is for children playing, they could easily put a berm of dirt up, and so that that at least people can't walk into it, or they'd actually have to climb up and get into the water at that point. I think the big thing is just to have some open dialogue with them and say, like, hey, we can't have a pond. Bits of water, small standing, a little bit of water here and there is no problem. But so I'll just make a note of it, and I'm going to be meeting with Jason Johnson early next week on a couple items, and I'll bring that up about the standing water. So I did see it today.
Okay, good, thanks.
Any other questions for Jeff at this time? Okay, thanks for that, Jeff. And again, all the reports and yeah, thanks. I missed planning, so I think that Dan Fitzgerald, who's still with us and has hung on with us all evening, wanted to speak to the bylaw that is in front of us. So I don't know if somebody wants to let him know that. There. Sorry about that, Dan.
The chair. Yeah, no, that's a good segue. I just apologize. I'm losing my internet connection here, so hopefully it's okay. If you can't hear me, just let me know. Or I guess you won't let me know. Yeah, so with respect to the proposal at 33318 Richmond Street. As council may recall, there was a planning recommendation that was brought forward. That recommendation was defeated, and council did charge staff to bring back a zoning bylaw, which implemented the design as shown by the proposal and the developer and owner. So with that said, staff has included a bylaw on the council agenda today with respect to that specific site. And what the bylaw does more specifically is it limits the height of the development to 17.5 meters, a maximum, which they have requested, to a maximum of 5 stories. So it doesn't allow them to go anything above that 5-story cap. Additionally, we've added specific setbacks related to the different lot lines that would basically lock the footprint of the building into the area that is shown on the concept site plan. So you'll see that with respect to section 9.3.8 in the bylaw, it says minimum exterior side yard setbacks, north, east, and rear yards. So that's what that's specifically doing, is basically locking that footprint in. As well, we've capped density on the site through a maximum density for 40 units per hectare. So that directly reflects the 51 units that they've requested in the actual proposal. We've also added 2 additional provisions to that specific bylaw. One being that development shall be implemented through a site plan agreement to facilitate the development of a 5-story, 51-unit apartment building, which substantively implements the site plan for the purposes of building placement, elevations, and renderings attached as Schedule B to the amending bylaw. So what that is intended to do, to the best of our ability, is require the developer to build what they've shown. Now, I will caution council that although we've included that line in there, that's something that not necessarily is well attuned to just a standard zoning provision in a bylaw. So that's something that can be challenged in the future if the developer so chooses to. However, we've done our best and our best ability to lock that in, and we believe that or they seem to be providing the intent that they're going to build exactly what they're showing, more or less. So that we've included that as a schedule. Schedules don't really mean anything to bylaws, but it's in there. And then the last one is basically we're requesting that they add a minimum 3-meter enhanced landscaping buffer around the perimeter of the site where they abut onto existing residential land. So that's basically all the residential lands except for on Richmond Street. We're asking them to provide an enhanced landscaping treatment to help provide a bit of a screen to those existing residential lots. If council has any questions, I'm certainly here to answer those now.
Okay, thank you for that update, Dan. Any questions for Dan on the bylaw that's presented before us this evening? Councillor Masterakis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're with limiting it to 5 stories and a specific area. Is that going against provincial policy for intensification? Using is it 5 years from now somebody says, hey, provincial policy is intensification, so now we're trying to restrict intensification on that property. Will we see any issues going forward? Because do you see this as essentially going against provincial policy when we put those restrictions in?
Yeah, through the chair, I think that's a very interesting point. It's a good question. I think with respect to the actual proposal, there's nothing that's the way that they position the building on the site. There would be nothing that would limit them from coming back in the future and asking for more density on the lands, is what I would say. This would, in fact, this at least gives council and the community a sense of what will be built now, and then would require an additional public planning process if they wanted to build more on the lands, is what I would respond with.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay, thanks very much, Dan, for that clarification and for updating us on how you've drafted the bylaw. Okay. Okay, Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening. The first report before you is in regards to the soccer field usage agreement that we standardly have done on an annual basis. It had been held off this year, as we all know, with COVID-19. We had been unsure of what soccer would look like and unsure about our usage in the next year. Given that we've started conversation with the developers of the land and the owners of the land as to the 2021 season, so the field doesn't get into disrepair and is still in a good quality for usage, as well as residents have still been utilizing the field, we felt it was appropriate to bring forward the usage agreement now and fulfill it, as we are still maintaining it and to cover us for liability reasons, being up there and utilizing it and our residents utilizing it. This is the appropriate action I feel that we should do. And we can continue our conversation about the 2021 season.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Any questions on that agreement? Okay, going on.
Second report you see in front of you, it's just basically a summary. A lot of questions right now are going around about when is the ice going in, what's the hockey season going to look like, what's figure skating going to look like. So just in front of you, I just kind of wanted to lay out the plans for reopening, some of the discussion points that have been made. There's a lot of comparison with larger municipalities to already having some ice surfaces in. I know countywide, the conversation we had that, they're holding off on their 3rd facilities, and that's the equivalent of us putting our 1 facility in. So it's really a mitigation to dealing with lost revenue. And until we know more about the commitment of our ice user groups, even since I wrote this report, those dates are changing as they come back to me. I mean, if all our user groups came back and wouldn't be able to have a commitment for enough ice usage to help cover our costs, then it could result in a later date depending on when their start date is. So if they could come back with an earlier start date based upon their return to play, And we'd obviously, you know, we try and work with them based upon that. But all we're trying to do is we're trying to smartly install our ice surface based upon when it will be used. In previous years, August and September, they've been very spacely used and rented. And it's the hottest months to keep an ice surface. It's not ideal operating cost, but it's been kind of one of those additional services we've done for our sports organizations as to allow them for extra training and summer camps. So obviously this year being a different year, it's not really an appropriate added expense that we should incur, I feel. Then as well attached to that report, you'll see a map that has our kind of a mapped up of the facility. There's been a lot of conversation with the other groups about how we would all operate. Can we limit that 50 cap to the entire facility, or are we able to essentially divide our facility into separate small facilities? No different than like a strip mall, right? They're different little stores essentially. And working with our health unit, they're quite happy to support us with what we've presented forward to them. And I think this way we can really operate better for our residents, as well as you'll see in the one map, we have different colored usage hours for the ice surface. And by doing this, it allows us to alternate the path of entry and exit for each hour of use to really reduce that time in between rentals. Because I know that was a major fear for minor hockey and figure skating, is that, you know, with having to have a half an hour gap between rentals, it's really going to space things out. They're not going to get as much ice time. So to try and shorten that, as well as, you know, we don't need to lose it that much more revenue either. We're trying to implement these plans. And I think we've got some really good conversations with our ice user groups about how we can do all this. And I'm pretty confident it's going to be a well-oiled machine. I know our COVID meeting this morning, it turned into a 2.5 hour meeting when we were just kind of rediscussing like the updates and how things are and how our plans are to reopen. And, you know, my staff's been fantastic with having input and ideas about their comfort level and about, you know, kind of just brainstorming how we can safely use our facility to our best. And I'm pretty confident with our season coming forward.
Okay. Any questions or comments on the ice plant report that Paul's just presented? Again, thanks for all that hard work. It's not easy to figure out how to move people through the facility different than you have. I just had one question, Paul. So the home side, you're not going to have any access to the home side. It's just the on the visitor side, just those dressing rooms?
To start off, it would just be the visitor side. It obviously would change. Say you have a multi-gendered team. We need an additional room in order to facilitate the hour. Also, you're required to have a space to isolate people if they start showing symptoms. And we were saying that way, if we had to isolate someone to that side until they could leave the facility, then they don't even pass through the other side, which would be ideal. Obviously, once they return to like actual like league gameplay, like team on team, then we would probably be utilizing the home side as well, because that way, especially if we don't do a game and then another game, we can really keep it flowing very nicely. So it's a kind of a phased approach to how we're going to open it up.
Good. Great. Thank you.
Other than that, I just some quick updates. Later this week, we're going to be announcing some nice things around town with partnered with the county and early on some fun things for kids to do just these last few weeks of summer. Some nice little kind of uplifting things in town. We received our Play It Forward. So Play It Forward was a subsidy program that the county had put together for kind of helping people with sports registrations. And we've gone, but with not really having sports registrations, they've turned it to kind of a equipment for those who are in need. So we've taken anonymous orders, and we've received the equipment. We're going to be picking it up from Middlesex Center later this week, and hopefully we'll have it for distribution next week. We've also completed our hogweed removal. It's well, not completed, but for as much as we can this year. The ABCA has worked great with us on this. We've identified some good locations that we can start working at for the next couple of years. I know he said earlier, earlier identification in spring will help us. So he's going to come earlier next season. And it really seems like it follows the bend drain, and we're going to kind of inspect it a little bit more in depth. And so we can take care of that. Other than that, we're removing some dead trees in the Campanelle area, as I reported on earlier this summer. We're working hard on that. And with also, we've had some great help from the flower crew this year too. They've really improved that area, fixed it up nice. I know residents have been pretty happy about that. And, they've worked well with us cleaning up that area, doing some nice work in front of the newly built childcare. So, those flower beds are looking bigger than I've ever seen them. And, pretty proud of that, even though I know the guy, but they're looking really good this year. So, they've been worked great with us, and it's a good partnership. Other than that, that's all.
Okay, thanks for that, Paul. And certainly, as always, you are right. The flowers look amazing this year, and we really are fortunate to have that crew look after them. Any questions or comments for Paul? I just actually had it in my notes. I just found out about the early on work that you partnered with, and I think that it's going to be, I think that'll be a fun announcement, and I think it will add a lot to not only Lucan, but Granton as well. So we'll look forward to that announcement in the coming days. Economic development. Lisa.
Yes, good evening. Just a quick update on some of the stuff we've been working on through the summer. Obviously, everyone's kind of seeing the mural now kind of develop live. It was kind of a nice change this time to see it kind of progress. And of course, it's still an unofficial mural. But once we get the go-ahead from Mappir to announce, we'll do an official ceremony there, and we'll put up a couple plaques and like I said, have something in the news and kind of get some press out about that project. The other project within that grant is still the development of a giant shamrock. I'm still working on murals and metal on a design for that. The community improvement plan, we had a staff level, our first meeting, just kind of see how we're going to roll this out, what the timelines, all of that. So we had our first one. We're just in the gathering stages right now for reports, and we're kind of looking at probably some virtual consultations in the fall, and then we're hoping to actually have the report finalized for January, so in the new year. So hopefully it's a quick process, but I think it's a very important one, and we look forward to going through that with everybody. We've had a few downtown grants. I expect a couple more still to come. And like I said, I'll probably do our fall EDC meeting coming up in September. So I'll be looking for a date from our members then.
Okay.
Oh, and sorry, the website, new township website, we've been working with the county and the provider that won kind of the proposal for that, and we're still just in a high level kind of talking about how timelines and how this might look and content and that sort of stuff. So it's going to be a longer project too, probably go into the new year, but new website, so that's exciting. Mm-hmm.
Great. Any questions for Lisa? Councillor Reagan.
I don't know if if it's Lisa I should be asking, but I have received a couple of concerns about the sign, the Welcome to Lucan sign that's on either end. Just with respect to sort of like coming in from Exeter, it's hidden, and one coming in from London, it just seems people can't see the dates and the color on it. I told them that I would mention it. Just to see whether or not anything's been looked at, or if anyone else has had concerns or complaints about it.
I think Jeff might have a comment about some of that.
All right.
I know, and through the mayor, the one when you come from Exeter coming in, we do have to get rid of the older one, the community board. We've talked about it. The guys are going to try to get the backhoe out there and cut. The hard part right now, the got the flower beds built around it, and we're trying not to wreck the flower beds and stuff like that. So it is on our radar to get that sign down so we can see the new one and actually appreciate the new one. And a side note, we did take down some of the other signs that were requested. The mayor, I know you had requested one, so that's a bit of a side note. So I know that one is coming down for sure, and they'll be able to see it a lot better when we get that down. So.
All right. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Jeff. Thanks.
All right, any other questions or comments for Lisa? Okay, moving on, councillor comments. Councillor Meighan.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. So I wrote to everyone a little bit earlier this week just about some traffic and public safety concerns. And I think it's something that we really need to address. And I'm actually was going to ask if we could have a report, but I know that other council members have brought concerns with respect to Kent Street, Gilmore Street. I'm talking particularly about Nicolline, Watson, and Saintsbury. I've had at least 8 families contact me and come to see me actually about the traffic, not just, I mean, people rolling through the stop signs, and basically the 2 streets I know on Nicolline and Watson, and there's a couple of others I think that are turned into pretty sort of speedways. The issue I think is that we've got a lot of young families. With young families come young children. We've got seniors. This is a walkable community. You see a lot of people walking. You see a lot of people, enjoying the nice weather. I'm thinking it's something that we really need to look at and incorporating some traffic calming measures. I know that, I've mentioned this before about that 3-way stop. People just roll through it. I mean, if the OPP are sitting there, they're going to stop. But once the OPP leave, it's, nothing's going to happen. So I'm just wondering if there's any way we could have a report on that. The other question I have is that with any new development, I'm just wondering, do we have any control over how streets are designed? And I mean, whether we can ask for calming measures and those sorts of things. I know there are some, and I know some other councillors that I've talked to have actually had complaints and had concerns from residents as well. So I'm just asking Jeff, I guess, as well ask. So.
Yeah, and Madam Mayor, so to start with the easy one, the developers, that we can ask for whatever we want in the new developments. So, and in fact, with some preliminary discussions with some of the developments around that have come across the desk, that's one of the first comments that have been made, because we see Gilmore and Watson and Nicolline as long stretches that need to be broke up. So yes, to the question to Councillor Reagan, we are working with developers to stop that, to work right from the beginning on the design so that those long stretches don't show up. So moving to the other question about looking at how, what we can do and options and traffic calming, and this is not new. So I would think a report coming back to council would be very, very reasonable and necessary. I've had comments on Gilmore, I've had comments on Kent, Watson, and again, other members of council have relayed information very similar to Councillor Reagan's comments. So I would suggest that I proceed with the report. And what I would suggest is in the report, I maybe pick an example and work through an example in the report. And if council was agreeable, we could pick Nicolline as the example and work through a report on how and what's available and what aspects are there in traffic calming, what works, what doesn't, and that sort of thing. And then we can have a discussion on that. But I think it would be good to bring forward an example and have it in the community, have an example of traffic calming that we could talk about. So, and I think, and I think you got to start right by collecting data. Like we need to know how much traffic, how many speeders, what is the speed that they're actually traveling down Nickel Line. A lot of this has to do, once you get that information, then you can pick the calming solution. Because you have to relate the calming solution to the speed and to the traffic count. So yeah, so I think that's a great idea. I've already had multiple contacts with very similar inquiries. So
all right, thank you.
Did you have something else?
I did have one other thing, just that I wanted to ask about if I could. And I've talked to Ron Rimmer about this, and I think I've mentioned it to a couple of other people. I was approached by a resident the other day, and they stopped me, drove by me in their truck and stopped me, and he said, "I need to show you something." And he shows me a picture on his phone of a planned subdivision in our community. And I know that when I spoke to our CAO about it, I mean, this is just conceptual maps, and I understood that. But I had about 10 or 12 families that were thinking that they were going to have a subdivision, built sort of where they're in the field behind where they're living. And this has happened a couple of times. It's come down to the surveyors that are out there. Now, I know people have the right to survey their land. I get all that sort of stuff. I'm just wondering if there's any way we can talk to whoever we need to. So when people are engaging surveyors, they're not giving them maps and telling them that there's going to be a subdivision behind their house in 6 months, because we know that's not what's happening. So, and the example I'll give you is I was walking on Kleinfeld and there was a surveyor, and I just, good morning, how you doing? And I asked them what they were surveying, and I kind of got basically none of my business. And I thought, oh, really? So we kind of took it from there, but then basically he was telling me about the subdivision that was going to be built in that field. And like I said, you've got families in the community that are saying, well, it's a surveyor, he knows what he's talking about. Is there anything we can do about that? Because that just starts a lot of rumors. It starts a lot of, people get upset. I keep telling them there has to be public meetings. There's a process. It's, we don't need to upset residents like that. So like, I guess I'm asking the CAO, can we do anything about that? As he's smiling at me.
He has the answer to stop rumors and gossip and
I hope so.
Stories
I am not God. Yeah, that's a tough one.
That's a $1 million question.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, I don't know that there's a way to do that. We can, I guess as a member of council, the only piece of advice I can give you is to try and calm people down, say, you know what, if you're interested in something, please call the office. And if there is going to be something there is always, there is going to be a public process and there will be notices, and it's very preliminary. But how do you get people to stop that? I don't know how you do that. I really don't. Yeah. We don't have a direct line to the surveyors, and I just, there's no way to stop that, really. All you can try and do is encourage them to communicate like they have. Just, don't jump to conclusions, I guess is the only word of advice I can have, that you should be giving them. So.
All right. Okay. Thank you. I'm just asking. Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Ron.
Okay. Any other councillor comments? Councillor Mastarakis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Same first comment as Councillor Regan. Beach Street, school zone. I've had a few comments from neighbors that nothing seems to slow things down there. It is a pretty good stretch. I know though the flashing speeding lights that go up on certain streets are handy because everybody kind of catches themselves not paying attention sometimes to the speed. So that's always helpful as a reminder. But same thing as Councillor Regan saying. The other item, I made a call. I was wondering about transportation and costs for people that don't have vehicles to London. I ended up connecting with Voyago. And Voyago is the same group that's been selected as a partner for transit from through Middlesex County in certain areas. They commented that Lambton Shores had received funding from the government, and part of their plan, and Lambton Shores got the funding, so they own the plan, I would think. So part of their plan may be a stop through Lucan with this transit. And that was a tentative date in October, depending on COVID and everything else happening. So my understanding is education, healthcare are two of the reasons why this is done, and obviously getting people to work and so forth. Lambton Shores supposedly having a run from Grand Bend to Lambton College, because that's a big draw, is my understanding, for education that way. And plus, it may be Exeter, Lucan right on Highway 4, and either London or linking up towards Stratford, Kitchener, whatever other transit spots they have. So not sure what we do at this point, or if anything, because it's really in Lambton Shores' hands. We'd be grateful participants, I think, of a program like that. But I'll leave it to the staff to see next steps. My understanding, part of it is, if you're part of the community, you have to find the right spot or spots. And the second part of that is to how you get people to those spots. So if it's winter and it's the arena, how does somebody get from where they are to the arena to grab transit or whatever the case is? But early stages, don't know enough, but I thought I'd pass it on to the group and staff to see what else they could find out.
Maybe that it's just a simple phone call to Lambton Shores to see what their transit program is going to look like. And maybe somebody from staff could do that. I think that's probably the place to start, I would think, you know? So yeah. Ron, shaking his head.
Yeah.
Since you brought transportation up, maybe I'll just piggyback on that. Unless, did you have something else, Councilor?
No, that's all, thank you.
There's been a lot of chat in the news lately about a transit program in Strathroy, and it's funded through the same funding that Lambton Shores would have gotten their funding for. And I think Strathroy's was set to start last week. Middlesex County also received funding for a transit program, and their pilot project is actually going to be centered out of Thames Centre, and they are much like that. It sounds like perhaps Lambton Shores is. They're actually going out. They're piggybacking off of Oxford's transit program. So there'll be a run from a couple of communities in Oxford into Dorchester, Thorndale, and then into London to various spots. Certainly, if it's successful, the idea would be that perhaps it grows within the county. The soft launch for the Middlesex County run was supposed to be August 21st. But I think it's going to be pushed off a couple of weeks. There was just a couple of issues that came up. So there'll be a soft launch and then more of a formal launch in the fall. So if you see some notification about that, but certainly transit is an important part of what this government, they feel that is very important, and especially in rural areas. So it'll be interesting to see how all of these runs eventually become connected and see where they go from there. So that is the update on the transportation one. Any other question or any other councillor comments? Okay, no changes of budget. Any notices of motion? Okay, I think what we'll do is we'll pass all of the motions, I think. Or should we go in camera and then come back out? Because we have to finish the property discussion.
I would suggest we go back in camera, finish up the in camera, and then pass all the motions when we come out of the in camera.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, so with that, we will need a motion to go in camera to continue our discussion on the disposal of property.
I'll
And
make the motion.
that's Councillor Regan